Hello everyone, welcome back to GPVWC. This is round 14 of the 2022 Superleague Championship on a very damp and dreary day here at Suzuka, which could see a world champion crowned. I'm Caitlin Penny, and alongside me today is not Ross McIntyre, unfortunately. He has not been able to make it, although we do have a worthy substitute in Ryan Elliott. Ryan, we've got weather playing a part today. How are you feeling about it?
First off, just want to say thanks for having me again. It's my second time on comms this year after Spa, and I'm feeling good about tonight. Suzuka's typically in these sort of cars not the most interesting track. There's not a lot of overtaking opportunities. These cars with a high downforce makes it pretty hard and a lot of aero wash. But you know the wet weather's definitely going to throw a spanner in the works. I mean, we saw how crazy it was at Singapore, 2 weeks ago today, and that was with a drying line. So full wet track this week. It's going to be certainly an interesting one. Definitely wet tyres.
It is true. It is tricky to overtake at the Singapore circuit here. The Japanese Suzuka circuit here. But no one told the FS1 drivers that last week, so it looks as if there's still a possibility for a strong battle out there. Of course, these Super League cars kick up a little bit more spray, a little bit more dirty, turbulent air, and they're a little wider too. So overtaking is always going to be a bit harder. But in conditions like these as well, it really does throw things for a bit of a loop. If we do get a drying line forming later on, it may calm down a little bit as drivers find themselves having to go a little bit more single file. But so long as the rain keeps up, it's actually quite an unpredictable circuit and could be setting us up for an unpredictable race. We're into qualifying now, 15 minutes ahead of us, and these 15 minutes will decide the grid. All of the cars have the track completely to themselves because through the magic of Simracing, we have one shot qualifying, except all at the same time. So every car is out there, but the track is still completely clear. It's like magic. The light about to go green, and it does go green now. So 15 minutes of qualifying ahead of us. Some drivers to look out for today. Jan Dragoon was actually fastest on the practice server just then for green stripes, and we had a bit of a muddled up order in the practice session. Obviously, it's never hugely representative of what's going to happen in the actual session because there are drivers out there with different priorities, and some of them joined late, and some of them have stayed on the other practice server for a little while, and therefore don't join the official practice server in time. But it's still a pretty interesting development to see the green stripes car right at the top of the times. We have a few substitute drivers, a few switch arounds out there. Holland Racing Team, who have had Thomas Harvey until recently, actually have Pascal Pollens out there today. So Pascal Pollens taking over from Thomas, who had wheel issues, and his software keeping him from racing today, I'm afraid to say. Steven Lexo out there again in the MDR, the Mayor Downard racing car, and alongside him is actually Owen McGorgy, one of the championship contenders in the FS1 championship. So keep an eye on how he does out there. Aside from that, pretty much the normal cast of characters. Not the biggest grid as far as GPVWC Super League is concerned. We've got 23 cars out there currently, but still more than enough cars to go racing. Onto a lap now goes Stefan Roll. Ryan, what do you think of the Suzuka circuit as we ride on board with Stefan Roll here?
I absolutely love it, especially this section here. Like in the dry, it's so satisfying when you hook it up. You're in sort of 5th, 6th gear all the way through, and it's really high speed, and it's pretty tricky as a driver, and the feeling you get when you just get it together is just unbelievable. Little slip on exit for Stefan there. But I feel like we've avoided one question so far, Caitlin. Who do we think is going to be on pole?
It's going to be a toss-up, absolutely.
I'm really not sure.
in the dry, you get the usual cast of characters. You get Royal, you get Winnick, you get both of the box. You know, they're always kind of up there. In the wet, it's very much less predictable. It's all about who gets their lap in at exactly the right moment and who doesn't make any mistakes. And no lap's going to be perfect right now. No driver is going to get it absolutely spot on in these conditions because they simply haven't had enough practice in these conditions. And sometimes the track can change so quickly that you reach a corner and you've never practiced on that corner in those conditions before. So it's not going to be perfect for any of them. They just have to get as close to perfection as they can and hope that it's good enough. I'm very much dodging the question. I fully get that. I'm gonna say let's say Tomasz Voch. I know that's quite bold since I don't think he's been on a pole for GPVWC yet. But he's looking good out there, and I was impressed by him in the practice. He's just gone to the top of the times there, about 7/10 up on Geoffrey Fournier, and more times are coming in now. So it's Walk at the top currently, followed by Volburn now, and then Fournier. And with the session this unpredictable, if I have got that prediction right, I think that is more luck than judgment, Ryan.
Well, I will say that personally, I do hope that it's Wack or Stepkowski with them being my two drivers, but I'm gonna go somebody different. Looking at Singapore last week, I'm gonna go Geoffrey Fournier. You know, Jeff performed unbelievably well in the tricky conditions, and I know he absolutely loves it. But it's really difficult in sim racing. With obviously, we know what the race is gonna be. Say we have 2 weeks in between, so you got 2 weeks of practice. And people are constantly checking the weather forecast over the 2 weeks, and obviously it changes day by day, and sometimes even R-Factor 2 doesn't pick up the correct weather. So like, it's a real fine balance in your testing. If you end up, as we see a little spin from Dylan Platt there, if you actually do any wet testing at all. So I assume some of these guys might have turned a few laps in the wet. I know personally we did. We've seen the forecast and we did a bit of a mixture of both wet and dry, so at least my guys know that, you know, they've 1-2 at the moment, so hopefully that's paying off. We knew what we were getting ourselves into, but some people might have only tested dry, like you're saying. It might be the first time that they're sort of going around Suzuka in the wet, so it's going to be definitely very interesting. But Jeff Fournier, that's my prediction, and he's doing all right so far in fourth.
Indeed, that's a decent prediction there. He's actually just come into the pits. A lot of the drivers have decided not to go for multiple runs in one go. I think towards the end of the session, there's a chance that they may be forced into a couple of runs in one go if they do get a bit of track condition that comes into their optimal pace for the session. They may just be forced to go for it over and over again with no time to relax out there. But for now, just setting a banker, then coming in and setting up again for another flying run. Tomasz Voch still at the top by 6/10 over Daniel Stepkowski. Very good opening run there for Tomasz Voch. And I would like to point out that he set his lap after I predicted him to go to the top of the order. So woo, go me. But I am celebrating way too early for that. Another thing that we've touched on, although I haven't really discussed much, is the fact that today could, and admittedly probably will, be a championship winning, a championship deciding round. Yannick Buck is 60 points ahead of his teammate and brother Leon, and he's had 3 victories on the bounce now: Belgium, Italy, and Singapore. He's been on the podium 8 times on the bounce, so he hasn't been off the podium since Azerbaijan earlier in the championship. And as a result, he has absolutely begun to run away with it at this point in time. Leon Buck is still in contention. He is on 166 points, so yeah, like I said, 60 points behind his brother. And if he scores 8 more points than Yannick today, then he keeps the championship alive to the next round. Maciej Winnick is a little further back than that, and I'm going to have to do some mathematics to work out whether he is still in contention or not. But actually, just looking at it, he's 81 points back from the leader, which means no, he is not still in contention. It's just Yannick and Leon. still going for it mathematically now. Mathieu, though, third in the championship, and he is he here today? Because I saw that he was having... Oh, no, he's not, sorry. So Mathieu Winnick, I saw that he was having issues recently and hasn't, unfortunately, been able to be hugely reliable in the last few weeks. He missed Italy, and unfortunately, he is going to miss today's race as well. So Sandeep Singh standing in for the first Edge Esports driver there. Stefan Roll is still out there, and the remainder of the top 10 in the championship are Matthias Moos, Thomas Harvey, of course Harvey not here today, then Dan Brewer, also not here today, Daniel Stepkowski, Thomas Fock, and Jeffrey Fournier. Those are the drivers to look out for anyway, but in the wet conditions it can completely change. Thomas Fock has just set another purple first sector, so he is indeed looking very good out there through the wet patches towards the spoon curve, and Thomas Fock appears to be on another flyer here, Ryan.
Yeah, it's looking pretty solid so far. I haven't seen too many improvements, but we're starting to get to the point now where people are finishing their second runs. One thing to look out for as well, Teams Championship. It is unbelievably close in the battle for third position. So there's 4 teams split by 12 points. 12 points, that's it. So obviously this round could be pivotal. If you look at, Holland missing Tom Harvey, that's really one of their star drivers. So it's going to be tough for them. We're starting to see the laps fly in now.
Indeed, there goes the lap for Thomas Fock. It's a 1:41.272. And it's a good job he put that in when he did, because Pascal Pollant and Yannis Vorburn just rocketed themselves up to second and third in the HRTs. Stepkowski now splits them, so it's RSR Holland in the top 4 positions on the grid as it stands. Great lap times for all 4 of those cars, and both teams looking to be the ones to beat here today, which does make a nice change actually. Normally it's Edge and Evolution up there with potentially some other cars intermingling the top of the order, but right now we've got 2 brand new teams up there who are, HRT of course are very used to being at the top of the order but haven't won a race yet this season. Powered by RSR need to have a good result or 2 in their championship fights as it stands. One thing to point out in terms of the championship fight is that unfortunately VBM Esports, as expected, have now seemingly pulled out of the championship. They said that they were going to at the end of the season, although we were talking in the last round about whether they would actually make it there. They only had 1 car for the last 2 rounds, and today they have 0 cars out there. So it looks as if VBM Esports time in GPVWC is coming to an end in a rather disappointing, fizzling out sort of way, which is a big shame for the team that won 2 of the first 3 races in this championship and look to be a force to be reckoned with right up until the middle part of this season. Still though, we've got Evolution out there who have started to run away with this championship now. We've got the Edge Esports drivers of Stefan Roll and Sandeep Singh. Holland Racing Team 3rd in this championship. Red Archer are set to take over from VBM Esports now that VBM have pulled out. And if you are looking at the championship standing sheet or anything like that, you'll notice that E-Team Hard is in position 6, although actually they are the same team as Powered by RSR. So you just have to remove that name from your mind and replace it with Powered by RSR, who have Thomas Fock and Daniel Stepkowski, Ryan.
Yeah, that's my sort of time to apologise for the mix-up there. Just things out of our control that meant we sort of had to go back to the original name. But I did definitely jinx myself when I said that Thomas Harvey was going to be a big miss, because Pollins is doing a pretty good job of filling his boots, I'd say.
For sure.
Yeah, so let's see what happens with the rest of the session. There's still probably time for 1 more lap for a lot of these guys. Obviously Chris Shepherd as well, down in 19th at the moment. I know he's got more than that in him. All he needs is to hook up a lap, but it's just so hard to get a lap together in these sort of conditions. Like, no corner, you're not going to be able to do every corner perfect. If you do, you're an absolute alien. You know, it's so unpredictable, and it's constantly raining. The conditions are just changing, you know, by the second. I was sort of expecting the conditions maybe to clear up a little bit, and maybe we'd see some people gambling on an inter, but the rains kept flowing all the way through. So we see a lot of people now starting their outlaps and probably go for one last lap of the session. So it's all going to happen now. The times are going to start tumbling.
As you mentioned, Chris Shepherd, he's just gone up to 8th in the time, so he did have more to give. Heiko Plume up into 10th on his last lap as well, so he is into the top 10. But yes, Pascal Pollen's doing a great job. Currently on the front row of the grid, if they were to finish as they are. One team that is notably absent, not from the race, but from the top of the order right now, is Evolution Motorsports. They are unstoppable in the dry conditions usually, but today, in the wet, they have not been anywhere near the fastest qualifiers. Yannick Bock currently 14th out there, and Leon Bock currently 18th position. It may just be that they've gone the wrong way in setup, expecting it to be dry, and in the wet conditions, they are a little way off the pace. Oh, Magorki there, doing a good job in that MDR car, isn't he? Out there in 16th position. And you've got to remember, and Stephen Lexo is 15th as well, you've got to remember that MDR missed the majority of this season, and as a result also missed all of the upgrades and all of that. This car is pretty much it's pretty much not in the same class as the other cars around it. And yet Lexo and Magorgi look as if they might be challenging the points paying positions, at least in the qualifying order. So keep it up, guys. Your team really needs this. Magorgi with a decent first and second sector here. I think he might be able to get himself into the top 15 with this lap. The checkered flag is being prepared. It's going to be shown in the next 30 seconds. Magorgi is going to get to go for another run, and anyone who crosses the line in the next 20 seconds now gets to go for another flying lap. Tomasz Fock, fastest in the first sector yet again. Matthias Moos, not that far off. He's doing a good job so far. Definitely looks to be taking some time off his flying lap. And Magorki went 11th with that lap. He's just had a spin, but that doesn't matter because he has gone and put that car right where it doesn't quite deserve to be at this point in time. Great qualifying performance from Owen Magorki as we talk. Daniel Stepkovsky improving on his time. It's not quite as quick as Moose is. I'm still a little more excited about Matthias Moose and what he can do on this flying lap. We're about to see the second sector times. Moose goes purple in the second sector. Tomasz Fock close on time as well. These two are going to be battling it out for... Well, actually, I don't think Moose is going to quite challenge for the top of the order, but he's going to be potentially in the top 4, splitting the RSRs and Hollands on this lap, and he goes to the top. Wow, his final sector was thrilling. That was amazing stuff from Matthias Moose, and now Tomasz Fock comes through and puts himself back on provisional pole position with a 140.729. So it's Walk followed by Moose. Stefan Ruhl goes 6th. There we go. Stepkovsky looks like he might be about to improve his time as well and go into the top 3 potentially. Pascal Pollens will have something to say about that. Here comes Stepkovsky across the line, goes 2nd. So it's a powered by RSR 1-2 as it stands. Ryan, contain yourself. Here comes Pascal Pollens now towards the final corner for his personal best lap. And it looks as if the track is getting a lot quicker. Across the line goes Pascal Pollens. He does not improve. Well, does improve, but stays in his position. So goes 4th. We've got Yanis Vorben completing his lap, staying 5th now. And I think that's going to be it for the top of the order at least. Where does Yannick Bock go? He goes 15th. So Yannick only able to put his car 15th position as it stands. Leon Bock's going to be lucky to hold on to 20th. Well, I think he's just about going to hold on to 20th now. What a muddled up order we have here, but a fantastic qualifying session for Powered by RSR, who have themselves 1st and 2nd on the grid. Ryan, you can breathe out now.
Oh, I think I got a bit of a nosebleed. We've never been this high up, especially not with both drivers. Really, really happy with that. Some really standout names in that top 10, and noticeably absent has got to be the box. I mean,
Absolutely.
what's happened there? The only thing I can kind of pin towards that is they developed that car to be as slippery as possible in a straight line. Especially going through the European sort of tracks like, the Monzas and Spas, tracks like that. Maybe it might be biting them in the wet condition with a sort of lack of downforce, but I don't know. Either way, I'm over the moon.
I'm sure you are. And there you see the top 10 order: Walk, Stepkowski, Moose, Pollant, Volburn, Rural, Fournier, Shepherd, Dragoon, and Poom. And we did not have any penalties from Singapore, so providing there aren't any outstanding penalties from drivers who may have missed the last round, the order that you see now is the order that they will start in. Robin Pansar 11th, then fantastic job from the MDR cars to go 12th and 13th, with by far the least developed car on the grid. Fabio Sixter is 14th. Let's hope that his internet holds up today, because it usually doesn't. Yannick Bock only P15, although if it was if the race was to finish like this, that would still be enough to give him the World Championship. Philip Pushke is P16, then it's Janis Lianos, Sandeep Singh, Dylan Platt and Leon Book, only P20. Remember, he needs to outscore Yannick by 8 points to keep the championship alive, and where he's finishing, he would score 0. Jukka-Pekka Lalu, P21, and then Augustin Canapino. And the final grid spot will be taken up by David Yunt, providing he starts the race, because unfortunately he did not set a qualifying time. So those are the 23 drivers in order. And in just a few minutes' time, we will see them going out onto this track in anger once again. We've got a 10-minute warm-up session to get through before then. But yes, this is going to be pretty exciting, actually. As much as Suzuka is not always the track I look forward to the most on the calendar, due to its difficulty in overtaking, it's very much spiced up today by not only the weather but also the championship implications, and the fact that the two Bock Evolution drivers are going to have to come through the field from 15th and 20th on the grid, Ryan.
Yeah, I can't believe we're even having to say that. I can't remember the last time anybody said the name Bock next to 15th and 20th. That's crazy. But now we're getting towards the race. There's another 3 levels to put on top. It's hard enough driving a car on your own in a private session in the wet. When you add, first of all, other people's spray coming up in your face, you've got tyre wear to deal with as well, and just following people as well. It's so hard. With the dirt, yeah, it won't be as bad, but it's still going to be even harder. So, Singapore was pretty brutal in the end. We had a lot of guys drop out. It's just going to be a battle of survival, really. If I was, well, I am a team manager, but if I was the rest of the team managers, I'd just be telling the guys to just keep the nose clean, and even if they do have a little crash, just keep pushing on. I mean, last round it was what, 14th was the final car, so you could have got points regardless if you're however many laps down or not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Only 13 cars ended up finishing at Singapore and being classified, so it was a crazy, crazy race. Just a reminder of how it happened. Yannick Bock and Leon Bock took yet another 1-2 in this race. That's their 4th 1-2 of the championship so far, and their second 1-2 finish in a row, actually, with Italy. And then a lot of the other top dogs DNF'd. Winnick DNF'd, Rural DNF'd, so did Moose, Harvey, Stepkowski, Eris Masculi went out. There were a whole bunch of retirements in that one. And as a result, it was up to some unexpected runners to come through and take some strong results. Tomasz Vok took his first podium finish of the season with 3rd position. Jeffrey Fournier was 4th with fastest lap, and then 5th was Jake Dennehan, moving up from the FS1 championship that he's doing so well in so far. Only 13 cars finished in the end. As we were saying, it's the fewest cars that are being classified at any round of the championship so far. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if we had a similarly chaotic race in terms of attrition today, because Suzuka is another track where there's not much margin for error. There's grass and gravel right by the side of the circuit, and in some places barriers are not too far away. It's quite slippery too. The curbs out there are deceptively tricky, especially on the exit of Degna 2, which you're just seeing there. If you get on the curb there, it's very easy to loop the car around onto the inside wall. A bunch of drivers were caught out by that in FS1. Of course, spoon curve is also extremely deceptive. You've got to tighten your steering partway through the corner because it starts off fast and then you're turning and braking at the same time. And when you do that and get on the curb, it's never a good outcome. And then, of course, you've got to worry about the other drivers around you as well, especially into the heavy braking zones, like the hairpin and the Casio triangle. And in the wet, it's super easy to make mistakes while racing your opponents, to get onto a damp bit or to miss your braking point. And there's reduced visibility too, as if it needed to be any harder. I think we are going to get more finishes than at Singapore, but we also have a few fewer starters here than we did at Singapore as well. So it might well be that we end up with a similar number crossing the line at the end here.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, to be honest. I mean, knock on wood. I think we're going to have more finishes. It's in this race, I don't think we're going to have the whole tyre situation like we kind of had at Singapore. I think the weather's going to sort of stay wet, so it's going to be tyre-wise, it's not going to be as many gambles, and there's not just going to be like a one dry line like there was at Singapore. But then, like you say, we do have less finishes, less starters, sorry, as well. So yeah, and the thing with the walls at this track is at the speed these cars go, the walls come up pretty quick. The gravel and grass don't do much, really. They don't help you too much in this game. And the walls are pretty close, so it's just going to be one long train, I imagine. Whoever's sort of at the front of the train is just going to lead the way, and it's just going to be who cracks along the way.
We'll see, indeed. Hello to everyone in the YouTube chat. We've got Damien Kardash cheering on the polls. We've got RSR12, of course, and Damien finding that delightful. Josh Downer commenting on the Magorgi Lexo battle. It has become a bit of a Nova B team right now, or a Nova A team, depending on the way that you look at it. With those two drivers both racing for Nova in GPVWC FS1, both doing a very good job in that as well. Jake Denahan saying another wet race. Yes, indeed. And Alex Lowe saying not rain, crying emoji. Why? Rain makes it more exciting, surely. Rain's good. Lee Davison's in the chat, Mr. Coppolino's in the chat, Josh Downard's here, Yeetus My Meetus is here. And of course I had to say that out loud. And of course Owen Harmon posting the very first comment and also keeping us up to date on Twitter. And if you are on Twitter, then go and support Owen's GPVWC updates as they come in, if you can. So we have 3.5 minutes to go now until the checkered flag for this warm-up session, and following that we will have a 53 lap race here at Suzuka. It's quite a low average speed circuit, and with the rain as well, it's going to be quite a long one. Not quite as long as Singapore, but even so, we're going to be here for a considerable amount of time here, and it's going to be a real challenge. I certainly am not sure if I would be confident to drive one of these cars for an hour and 45 minutes in the wet at Suzuka. I feel like it would probably use a bit more concentration than I have in my bank, but anyway, these drivers are prepared for it. They know what they have to do here today, and I just hope that they're all plenty awake enough for this one, because like I said, this is going to take some extreme concentration.
Yeah, it's not a particularly easy track on a bone dry day, so it's that first sector. It requires so much commitment. It's definitely it's going to catch a few people out, because your weight is transferring so much between, you sweep left then right then left. It goes on, and it'll throw the balance of the car off if people aren't careful. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping the wet's going to throw in a bit of action for Suzuka that, to be honest, it really needs. But I just it's so hard to make a prediction. I mean, you made a spot-on prediction for quali. Is that the first time you've done that this season, or have you got it right before?
I did, didn't I? Well, actually, I
remember.
haven't really been predicting qualifying performances because it's so difficult, really, because here in GPVWC it can change every time. I know I say that after Maciej Winnick and Dan Brewer locked out the front row of the grid something like 4 times in a row earlier this season, but I mean, those 2 drivers aren't even here today, so it's always. Yeah, I'm actually quite proud of that. Good job, me.
Yeah, good job, you. Pat on the back, well deserved. But yeah, I don't know who I'm going to go for. I don't want to jinx anybody, It's commentator's curse written all over it.
That is true, especially with your guys 1 and 2, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know whether to just do it. I'm gonna stick with my guns about quali. I'm gonna say Fournier. I want my guys to win, and I have the absolute most faith in them. But I'm not gonna jinx them. I'm gonna jinx Fournier instead. Love you, Jeff.
So you think you're about to lose?
I hope not. No, you know what? I'm backing my guys all the way. I'm gonna predict the top 3 stay as they are, or in some iteration of the top 3 what they are.
Okay.
That's
very good.
That's my guess. But if I had to choose none of the top 3, I would say Jeff.
Okay, so what you're saying is you don't really know.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's just one big guess at this point.
Indeed. Hello to Idan K in the YouTube chat saying, "It's my birthday, let's go. Happy birthday to you," and the rest. I'm not going to do the full thing, that would be embarrassing. Vince here as well. Let's go, Stephen. I want to see it. Yes, indeed. Stephen lining up 11th today, if I remember correctly. Could also be 12th. It was around that point on the grid. And we do have the checkered flag out now for the warm-up session. And what do you know? We've got Yannick Bock at the top of the times. So even though he struggled in warm-up, as much as he struggled in qualifying, this warm-up session has gone fairly well for him so far. It's not hugely representative, but how many bells does that ring, seeing Yannick at the top, followed by Stefan Roth, P2. David Yutt up there in P3 after not setting a qualifying lap as well. The race director says we'll be moving to the race in a moment. He's just put all of the drivers into their correct grid positions, and now he's doing the pre-race briefing in the chat as the drivers make their way back to the pit lane. And when the session takes over, they'll have about 65 seconds to get themselves to the grid, to the start line, and then we'll be underway for the formation lap, followed, of course, by the 53-lap Grand Prix that you've all come here to see. Reminder, if they finish as they qualified, then Yannick Bock will be crowned champion today, despite it being 2 rounds to the end of the series. And that would be a little disappointing, because it would mean that the final 2 races of the season would only be for bragging rights. But whatever, that's how racing happens sometimes. Some years you get extremely close championships that go right down to the final lap, like last year's did. And then other years, one driver deservedly takes it by running away with it. And this year, Evolution Motorsports have had absolutely the best package all the way through. We know it's going to be an Evolution Motorsports driver for sure who is going to win the World Championship this year. And if it's going to be wrapped up today, it's going to have to be Yannick Bock. So a minute to go now as the drivers line themselves up on the grid. And when that timer is out, we'll be underway on the formation lap, Ryan.
Yeah, it's almost time. I'm really, really looking forward to this. It's going to be a long night, though. 53 laps in the wet around this place is... yeah, it's going to be a long one. 5.8 clicks in length. But for the drivers, they'll have a whale of a time. This place is so fun. I'm just gonna hope that we have a clean race, nice clean race tonight. No controversies. Everyone has at least a decent run. As I look into the YouTube chat.
Indeed.
Gonna ignore that chat.
What would you say to the RSR drivers if they were, if you could speak to them right now?
Just tell them not to crash into each other. We've seen some messy teammate rivalries in the past, but I have full faith in my guys, so...
Indeed. Okay, well away we go on the formation lap now. Let's get the grid order up on the screen. For the starting order, it is indeed going to be Tomasz Frog, who is starting on pole position today alongside Daniel Stokowski, two very quick young drivers powered by RSR. Then it's Matthias Moos, P3, and Pascal Pollens doing a very good job on his stand-in drive in P4. Yannis Wilburn, P5, then reigning champion Stefan Roll in P6, Jeffrey Fournier, P7, and Chris Shepherd, P8 now. P9 will be Jan Dragoon, and then it's Hygo Poom, P10, Robin Pantar, 11th, and Stephen Lexo, P12. I've seen plenty of Stephen Lexo fanboys and fangirls in the YouTube chat. Magorki, P13, Fabio 6th, P14, Yannick Bock, champion-elect if he finishes where he is, and then Philip Pushke, P16. 17th will be Janis Lianos, and then it's Sandeep Singh standing in for Maciej Winnick. Then it's Dylan Platt and Leon Buck, the driver with the most to gain and also to lose today. P21 is Jakub Lalu, then it's Augustin Canapino, P22, and David Yunt will round out the grid after not setting a qualifying time. 53 laps ahead of us now. Like I said before, powered by RSR 1 and 2. All of our eyes will be on them, and all of the eyes that we have remaining after that will be on the Evolution Motorsports drivers, who will be doing battle further down the order, trying to work their way through on what may be an inefficient setup for this Suzuka circuit. Just a few more corners to go now until the start of the race. Ryan, looks like everyone's on full wets here. No one gambling just yet, and I think that's the safest and best option in these conditions because it looks very shiny on that track.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I missed you saying this, but have you noticed that Leon Bock's starting from the pit lane?
Oh yes, there he is. So Leon Bock, not only is he going to have to come through the field, but now he's also going to have to gain a bit of time on the first lap as well after going into the pits. That may be strategic. He may want to have, well, maybe he broke part firmware.
Yeah, he's broken part firmware.
And changed his setup slightly, which you're not technically allowed to do. That means that he has to start from the pit lane. It could also be that he considers the likelihood of some carnage in the first few corners too great to start from P20, and he wants to start from the pits to make sure that he can keep out of all of that trouble. Here we go to the grid now. Thank you for pointing that out to me, Ryan. And the excitement builds because 23 drivers are about to do battle. Those 5 red lights at the front of the field will light up one by one. And when they go out, we'll be underway here at Suzuka. Here they come, and they go out. Right now, away we go. It's a good start there for Tomasz Frog. Not so good for Stepkowski. Moose gets to the outside on the slightly drier, slightly more rubbered in to the left-hand side. He's going right around the outside of Daniel Stepkowski here. Stepkowski will try to hold on, but the next corner is a left-hander, and Moose splits the RSR. So it's Wok leading, followed by Moose, and then it's Stepkowski. Leon Bock gets going from the pit lane. It looks to have been relatively clean through the first couple of corners, which is always good to see in conditions like this. Yannick Bock is up to 14th place. He's trying to keep it clean in the mid-pack and avoiding locking wheels with drivers despite how close they all are. Stephen Lexo losing a bit of momentum on the outside line as we talk. We're heading up to the Degners now. This is always tricky. Single file through here pretty much. And they all just about make it through once again, despite the poor visibility and the lack of grip. Pascal Pollens apparently has a drive-through penalty. That will be for a jump start. Cutting Degner 1, that's interesting. He must have really badly cut it to have got a drive-through on the first lap. It's a glitch. Okay, so it's not an actual drive-through penalty. That's good to see.
That is really unfortunate for Pollens.
apparently it's just a really, really harsh corner cutting penalty at that corner. Wow, so that's gutting for Pollens, and I don't think that's fair. If I was the race steward here, I'd probably remove that and have a look at it after the race. But anyway, thank you for keeping us updated there, Szymon. That was Szymon Frelik, our broadcast director, who you won't have been able to hear, but is in our ears, keeping us updated on everything that we need to know in this race. At the end of the opening lap, it's Tomasz Wok leading from Matthias Moos and Daniel Stepkowski, Janis Vorben, and for now, Pascal Pollens. There is presumably a penalty hanging over him, although an extremely harsh one. Normally it gives you several warnings before you end up with a drive-through penalty for cutting corners, and I think he absolutely deserved a warning, and rather than a full-on penalty, especially considering it's the first lap and the visibility is so poor. Stefan Royal is P6, then it's Fournier, Dragoon, Shepherd and Panzer at the end of the opening lap. Yannick Buck is in P14 now, and Leon Buck is in P22, having made up one place. Ryan, second lap now, and actually quite a clean start for these conditions.
Yeah, definitely. People are already starting to get into the rhythm. We saw one move up at the top with Miz going through on Stepkowski. Looks like Walborn and Pollens have made the switch, which makes sense. They're probably in a voice call together as we speak. And there's also one thing to sort of think about in this wet race is that there's no DRS as well. So they still do have push to pass. So there'll be opportunity for people to jump at each other in a straight line or coming out a corner exit or wherever they're going to use it. But there's no DRS to think about, so we don't particularly have to focus too much on the magical 1 second gap.
And thank you to Szymon Frelik for posting the weather forecast as well. It looks as if we're going to have moderate rain all the way through this race now, and that's comfortable for the drivers who are comfortable in these wet conditions, but not for those who wanted a bit more of a changeable race. Even so, I think it's probably going to make this race slightly easier, because even though it is very damp out there and quite shiny in places, it's not kind of aquaplaney conditions, and it's better than having a dry line that you can't step off. Here comes Yannick Buck and makes up a place there on Stephen Lexo, goes up the inside. So Yannick now into 13th position. There's Sandeep Singh on one of his stand-in drives, and Yannick was a lot faster than Stephen Lexo in the straight line there. That's probably partly because of the MDR's lack of upgrades, and also partly because Yannick would have just got a much better exit out of that final corner there. Now, as we have a 36% rain graphic on our screens right now, it looks as if we're not going to get any DRS in this race. So even though you can see Matthias Moos is within a second of Tomasz Wok now, it's not going to mean as much as it. And Yannick Buck, apparently, we've got a penalty on our screen now from Yannick Buck. And is that another glitchy penalty from the Degners? He's just gone through that sector. It's too late to be a drive-through. It's too late to be a jump start. And here's a replay of Yannick Buck in the S's heading up towards the Degners. Now, if he cuts Degner 1, we'll know that it's likely as a result of that extremely harsh track limit down there. He has cut Degner 1, and if he's got a drive-through for that, that is extremely harsh. But Yannick Buck now, with a drive-through penalty, will drop out of the top 15. It won't help out his brother too much, because as we talk, Leon is still down in 22nd. He would need to finish at least 9th to keep the championship alive today. But of course, with the race being so long, we still have plenty of time for things to change, and it could very much come into play later on. Pascal Pollens still staying out there. He has 5 laps from when the penalty was given in order to serve that penalty, and I'm surprised that he hasn't been in yet, because with that lack of visibility from the car ahead of him, you would have thought he'd have liked to duck in and drop to the back of the field sooner rather than later. Of course, the argument to that is if he knows he's going to come out in traffic as well, then it doesn't really make any difference. But anyway, I think it's probably worth a gamble at this point in time. Yannick Buck now has to be thinking about that as well, and all of the managers, all of the race directors and analysts in this field are going to have to be shouting to their drivers, do not cut Degner 1. This is absolutely imperative. With that being said, I swear I cut Degner 1 a couple of times in the FS2 race and got away with it. So I don't quite know why it's suddenly become so harsh. But whatever the case, that's not ideal for this race, because it means that these drivers aren't getting warned like they're supposed to be.
It's interesting you say that, because Jake Denahan also says in the YouTube chat that he didn't think that they had this sort of strict corner cutting in FS1. But then again, Josh Downer makes a good point as well. Obviously, they're going at a higher speed. That could have something to do with it. The game might process it as more of a cut because they're going faster over it. It's really, really, really unfortunate for Yannick there. He was already having a pretty rough start to his evening, and this is just...
And by my reckoning, Pascal Pollins has to pit this lap, and if he doesn't, that means that the race director has removed that penalty manually. And I'd be surprised if that was the case, because the race director never tends to remove track cutting penalties. But considering how early this all happened and how seemingly against the standard running of things it all has been, maybe they'll make an exception for today. I'm sure. Post-race penalty in Monaco. Okay. Super lights. Okay, thank you for keeping us up to date, Szymon. Okay, well, yes, so Sixter's got a penalty now. He's been off the road, and I think we've just had a spin for Giannis Lianos. Yes, so I saw someone parked to the side of the road, and it was Lianos, who's now dropped a little further down. That was in the second Degner, so looped it on the exit there. He's got away with it without hitting the wall, but yes, as you speak, and he's now got a penalty as well. We're about to see a replay of that, of his spin. So we think now that it's going to be reviewed after the race, all of this track limit shenanigans. No, it's not. Pascal Pollins is in the pits, so Pollins does come in now to serve his drive-through penalty. A very unfortunate one that I don't think he deserves. And that means that everyone else who was given the same penalty is going to have to do the same thing to avoid being automatically disqualified by the game. So Yannick will have to be in this lap or next lap as well. And he's still out there in 12th position as we talk, so he'll have to do it this lap, I think. Igo Poon, meanwhile, going side by side with Dylan Platt into the S's. Look at that, rubbing wheels with each other. Igo not having a great start to this race. I swear he was about 10th. He's down to 17th now. So he's lost
quite a few places.
He has. I wonder if he had a little grassy excursion at any point, because I didn't see it happen on the opening lap.
He was on the opening lap. I think he dropped to about 16th on the opening lap.
Look, Owen's up to 10th. Look at McGorgy go. This is amazing.
Yeah.
How about that for Owen McGorgy?
Not a bad effort. It's a shame about Fabio as well. Just like he's finally survived more than like 2 laps and gets a penalty for what we assume is cutting Degner 1. It's pretty ridiculous, but unfortunately that's just how it's going to go tonight by the sounds of things. So if you're a team manager, I'd be more worried about telling your drivers not to cut Degner 1.
Absolutely.
Man, this is crazy.
Well, thank you to Vincent Butt for sending me a screenshot of the regulations, which clearly shows that you can't ask the race director to remove your penalty for track limits. I thought today might be a little bit of an exception, considering you're normally supposed to get warnings before these things take place. But I guess the rules are pretty black and white, and the argument will be, shouldn't have been cutting the track in the first place, which is fair enough. Still a little unfair in my opinion. By the way, into the pits on this lap, Sixter and Buck. So both of those drivers serving their drive-through penalties now. Sixter in front of Buck at this point in the race. And Giannis Lianos has become the first retirement of the race. We saw him have that spin a lap ago and then picked up a penalty. I'm afraid he is now in the pit box and out of it. And I presume he's just had enough. And honestly, I don't blame him. Might as well save an engine for a future round as well. And Stephen Lexo, meanwhile, just had a little bit of an off coming up to the Degners, lost a couple of places, was running in. Well, he's down to 13th now. Oh, who's that? Dylan Platt going for a spin. Dylan Platt hits the wall and somehow maintains his front wing. So Platt still with a front wing despite that little spin there. And now he gets a penalty too. Where's that?
I'll be same thing, I guess. Cut track. That's unfortunately the only thing that kind of makes sense in this situation.
But he didn't cut Degner. He didn't cut Degner 1. I think that spinning through Degner 2. Oh, it must be about the exit of Degner 2, where you can get over the AstroTurf and then under the underpass as well, because I've seen a couple of drivers spinning off there, and both times they've been given a penalty, and I don't understand that, because it's not like they're cutting a corner or anything. Here's Stephen Lexo's mistake. It's through turn 7, so we've got a couple of corners to go before you see what happens. But anyway, here we go. He's gonna loop it, well, not quite loop it around. He's gonna get on the grass and then run wide to avoid looping it around. There we go, big twitch and a good save. And through went a couple of drivers. Through went Philip Pushkate and Sandeep Singh. And there's Dylan Platt's spin, which has inexplicably given him a drive-through, it seems.
Can't believe what we're witnessing tonight. This is really, really unfortunate. There's keeping the car, on track. I get that. But this is crazy. The new track limit system's meant to be, an improvement, and it's really not doing its sort of job tonight. But let's focus on the race now. Obviously, it's a shame, and it's probably going to continue throughout the race. But it's looking okay for the top 3 at the moment. They've managed to build a 3 second gap back to Yanis Wellborn in 4th, which is good start. They just have to keep the head down, run their own race at this point. The 3 of them will probably work together, create a even bigger gap, and then sort of battle it out towards the end.
Indeed. Well, normally with the new track limit system, it works pretty well. I mean, I've not had any real issues with it myself, except at modded tracks, because sometimes the game doesn't quite register where the track limits are on modded circuits. Not really our Factor 2's fault, but today I'm afraid it doesn't appear to be working at all. Like you said, it really should be given warnings, but it is going straight for the drive-throughs like it's not supposed to be doing. Hygo Poom into the pits. I didn't see whether he had a penalty, but this looks to be a pit stop. Comes in, stops in his marks, and quite an early one for a driver who dropped down the order, going on to another set of full wets. Well, I wasn't expecting him to change tyres, but I was trying to rack my brain to see why he would be coming in this early. Maybe just overheating the tyres a bit, but anyway. There's David Hunt, world champion, sorry, not world champion, Philip Pushkate, his teammate, was a world champion of the past, but David Hunt has been a GPVWC winner in the past. Hasn't had a great season for Stacks, and actually for the majority of the season he's been trying to advertise it to other drivers who may want to race that car. A lot of the time he deliberately starts from the back or the pit lane, but there have been some races in the season where he has got his confidence up and then has seemingly thrust himself into the action. Nearly scored points last time out, but DNF'd quite late on in the race, I'm afraid. His only points finished so far this season was in Monaco, which was another similarly chaotic Grand Prix. There's Philip Pushkate, like I said, world champion of the past. Did battle with the likes of Michael Francesconi and David Feidock running in 11th position as we speak, behind the very fast starting Owen McGorgy in what should theoretically be the worst car on the grid, Ryan.
Yeah, pretty good effort by Pushka today. He's really started to find his form towards the end of the season. Obviously, he had a few years out from GPVWC, and you know, he started off a bit slower, but he's really starting to get there now and challenging for decent points on the regular. It's just nice to see that. Obviously, Christian, or how I'd just call him, Gadona, is finally starting to, you know, get consistent drivers in the car. I know it was pretty difficult at the start. They didn't really have any drivers, and you know, Christian produced that really cool livery, that Drive for Us livery. That was pretty cool. But Philip's having a good run today. He's made a few positions on that as well. Like I say, McGorgy as well with that car's just. He's outperforming it. That car hasn't. I don't know exactly when the last upgrade was, but the last like race that they competed in, apart from when they've made the comeback for the last 2 rounds, was Portugal. Of development, it's probably missed.
They actually missed 10 races of this championship.
10?
It was crazy stuff. Yeah, they missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 8. Sorry. So they missed 8 races. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it was 7. What am I talking about? You're absolutely right. My apologies.
No, I'm good, mate. Yeah. I wasn't even looking.
Meanwhile, Stefan Ruhl has been into the pit lane. So Stefan coming in now from 6th in the order, and he's about to head to his pit box. Still relatively early, although getting to the point where we'd start to expect the first few pit stops. It looks as if there's going to be quite a few today, because if the tyres are starting to overheat already, then there could be another 3 or 4 stops before the end of this one. Out of the pits goes Stefan now, P17. Normally you only see a whole bunch of pit stops in really changeable conditions, because you go from wet to inters to dry, or vice versa. Today though, the wet tyres not really lasting for Heiko Poom, for Stefan Ruhl. Could there be another factor I'm missing, Ryan?
It could be people trying to get clean air. You know, the spray is so huge here. People might just be sacrificing a little bit just to get some clean running, do essentially a massive undercut.
I guess, because
I can't understand. I didn't think that the wet tyres were sort of in the 8 to 11 lap range. But it is quite an intense track on the tyres, I imagine. But I expected it to be more than that.
Because if you say you know you're going to have to make 1 stop in the race, and you think your tyres can last the majority of the event, you know, it makes sense, rather than pitting halfway through the thing, it makes sense to come in earlier on when you're stuck in traffic and then get it over and done with. Matthias Moos is about to do the same thing. Look, Matthias Moos in from 2nd in the order, so once again we have an RSR 1-2, savour it while you can, Ryan. But yeah, it will remain to be seen whether that is indeed what's going on, or whether these tyres genuinely are only lasting 10 to 15 laps. Into the pits now, Robin Panzer from behind. Looks as if we have a few drivers who are thinking similarly on the strategy here.
Like Chris Shepard. A bit of traffic.
Chris Shepard and Jan Dragoon just very nearly touched in the S's, sorry. Chris and Jan absolutely flying through the S's together. And it's Chris who's come out on top of that one. Matthias Moos, meanwhile, has come out with a bit of traffic ahead of him, I'm afraid. So if he was trying to get some clean air, it hasn't really worked. He's got Philip Pushkir directly in front of his nose, and then Owen McGorgy slightly ahead of him as well. And Matthias is going to have to go to the inside of the first Degner. Don't do that, because you will get a penalty, I'm sure of it. He backs out of it, and through the second Degner, gets held up a little further. Now let's see how long RSR can go for, because if I was Daniel Stepkowski here and I heard that Philip was being held up, then depending on the state of my tyres, I'd be thinking, could this be an opportunity here? Yellow's out there somewhere. Matthias Moos is again trying to pass Philip Pushkir up towards the corner. Raw just got past Canapino as we watch a replay of Shepard versus Dragoon. And I am intently watching Moose versus Pushka here because this is crucial in terms of this fight today. Down towards 130R, I think he's going to have the move done plenty before then. And his next target is going to be Owen McGorgy. Into the pits comes Stepkowski. So indeed, it looks as if we're going to see the effective order at the end of this lap now between Moose and Stepkowski. I think Daniel has a really good chance here of maybe jumping Matthias Moose. Into the pits comes McGorgy, also Fournier, and Jan Dragoon. And Moose goes down the pit straight, and he is going to come out ahead of Stepkowski still, so does maintain that position. But importantly, there are no cars between them, so it is still very close between Matthias Moose and Daniel Stepkowski. There is Jan Dragoon now, coming out side by side with... Who is that? We've got... it's not Robin Panther, is it? I'm getting a bit confused, but anyway. Back into the race. Sorry?
Could be Dylan Platt, maybe. He's a lap down.
Yes, no, that's why I was confused, because it was a driver who was a lap down. You're absolutely right. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. And the race continues with Yannis Vorber now in second position, but all of those drivers near the top of the order expected to stop.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what Vac's going to do here. There didn't seem like much of a change in the gap between Moose and Stepkowski. It seemed to be pretty similar, but I think the traffic that Moose had really helped Stepkowski a bit there. Wack did have I think it was about a 1.2 second lead, so he has a little bit of time to play with. But if I was Tomasz, I'd probably pit this lap because Moose is now in completely clean air for the next sort of 4 seconds.
He's listened to his team boss's orders, and in he comes. There's a big puddle on pit entry there, and that's going to be tricky. You still need to get down to pit lane speed limit. And Tomasz Fox stops in his box now. He had about a 3-second advantage to Daniel Stepkowski, so as a result probably had about 2 seconds to Matthias Moose before all of this. Yannis Vorburn will now lead the race. And where are Moose and Stepkowski? Moose is on the left and he goes through, and Tomasz Fox loses 2 places.
Both of them.
So Moose leads the race, at least in the net order. Stepkowski goes through to second, and Tomasz Fox has lost a couple of positions in all of that. Just wasn't quite quick enough on the in-lap, and Moose and Stepkowski were able to jump him, Ryan.
Yeah, I think that's going to definitely have taught him a lesson this time around. It looks like the undercut is, really, really strong. Especially when there's no traffic. So like, first time around with Stepkowski, it didn't seem too bad, but obviously Moose was held up for the predominant part of the lap, where he's had sort of a lap there to keep his head down and push on, and he's managed to capitalise, and with a decent gap as well.
And Shepard's made a mistake, and no, he was giving room to Matthias Moose. It looked as if Shepard had made a mistake, but actually he was just letting Moose through, but he's let Daniel Stepkowski through in the process. Meanwhile, we've had 2 more retirements. Fabio Sixter has just retired from, I think, his 10th race in a row. That is, I don't get why he keeps going. I'm so sorry, Fabio. But yes, Fabio, unfortunately, out of yet another GPVWC Superleague race. This time, though, it was a crash. It wasn't a disconnection. He spun it through the Dunlop curve and hit the wall with the rear of the car. So out of the race goes Fabio Sixter, and also out now is Dylan Platt. In terms of the strategy of it all, we do still have a few drivers out there who are yet to stop, although really the only ones you've got to be worried about right now are Yannis Vorburn and Matthias Moose, but into the pits comes Vorburn, so Moose will lead. Through he goes now. Stepkowski is the net leader. Meanwhile, Dylan Platt's retirement looks to have been a bit more straightforward. He retired to the pits all by himself, and we now have 20 cars remaining. Matthias Moose has also... Yes, so Moose has pitted. Yeah, my apologies. I got carried away. Yes, so it is Moose leading the race in the net order, followed by Stepkowski and then Wach. And then Royal and Fournier following them through. So it looks as if the majority of the field has made their first pit stop now. Actually, if it's okay, Szymon, could we see the pitting graphic to see kind of how many pit stops? It's glitched. Okay, never mind. Thank you anyway. It looks, yeah, like I was saying, like that is the effective order right now, with Moose leading, followed by Stepkowski, Buck, Royal, and Fournier. Although admittedly, with how early all of those drivers stopped, it's probably not going to be that long before they're all back in again, Ryan.
I know, it's coming around quickly. I mean, the likes of Poom was lap 8, I think he pitted
Yeah.
on. So if he keeps up that rate, it'll be within the next lap or two. It has worked for him, granted. You know, he jumped up quite a few, considerable amount of places as Tygo there. But it's going to be now really interesting because people are just going to just undercut and undercut and undercut, and it'll catch up eventually come the end of the race. Like you can only knock off so many laps.
But you see, that's where the net order starts to fall apart, because at that point, you've got to keep in mind that he may end up making one pit stop more than these other drivers, in which case he's not really in 8th position at all, is he? But anyway. Meanwhile, it's also worth noting, Leon Bock is up to that magical 9th position. He's been gaining places, although I'm not sure he's actually stopped yet, has he, Leon Bock? He's up into 9th though, and if the race was to finish like this, he would keep the championship alive, with Yannick still down in 17th and actually under pressure here from Sandeep Singh. Looking at Leon Bock's lap times, he has pitted. He pitted on lap 12, or the start of lap 12, so the end of lap 11. And as a result, that means he's genuinely elevated himself up about 12 positions in this race now, because he's just passed Tygo Poom. So Leon on an absolute rampage at this point in time. Keep your eye on that man, Leon Bock.
Yeah, he's kind of been a sort of silent assassin, especially from a pit lane start as well. Probably did save a little bit of tyre wear by not sort of pushing too hard following on the opening lap or so. Obviously, he would have had a bit of a gap to the back of the pack when he came from the pit lane. But Lee Davison makes a good point. The undercut is huge here. I knew it would be. It has been all. I feel like all season the undercut's been pretty strong. It's just gonna all like Tygo Poom. He's gained a lot of positions, but his tyres are not going to be now probably as strong as the people around him. And there's so many people around him as well within the sort of like 2-second range that needs to be careful.
Indeed he does. There's Leon Bock still on his rampage. He's actually catching up really quickly here to Robin Panzer, really quickly. I wonder if what you're saying about the cars being quite slippery through the air is coming into play here, because even though that may have affected him in qualifying, it means that he's treating the field basically like a ladder. He's passing one rung at a time. And they can't really hold him back if he's that much quicker than them in the straight line. And then they also can't pass him because he's that much quicker in a straight line. I wonder if that's coming into play here, and whether he's just gaining so much time on the cars ahead of him because he is such a quick driver. I mean, it'll be a bit of all of those factors, but anyway, there's Pascal Pollins, who has not had a good start to this race due to his penalty. He is on a recovery drive though. He's fighting with Augustin Canapino right now over the final points paying position. While you're doing this, I'm keeping an eye on the leaders, so we're not going to miss anything between Matthias Moos and Daniel Stepkowski, because if something does start to happen, I will start shrieking about it. The gap between those two right now is about 0.7 of a second, and both of them quite equal in terms of their most recent lap times. Matthias Moos's fastest lap is actually fastest by a very long way in this race so far, but seemingly struggling to replicate it because all of the other drivers around him are keeping up right now. Chris Shepherd on the back of Owen McGorgy didn't line himself up particularly well through the spoon curve. That's a very difficult corner. I would say one of the most difficult corners technically on the calendar. Yes, you're not likely to crash there because there's a lot of runoff, but you are extremely likely to go off, and if that corner was on a street circuit, I'd call it probably the Axton black spot of the calendar. But anyway, to the inside goes Chris Shepherd. Quite a late move, very late move. We saw someone getting spun around there in the FS1 race, and Chris Shepherd maintains his position, stays 11th with some good defensive driving from Chris Shepherd now. But yes, quite a late move, which very nearly worked. he would have needed to keep himself on the outside line through that second part of the chicane to be on the inside for the third part. Meanwhile, Dragoon and Poom just swapped places on the exit of turn 1. I think Poom got a bit of a twitch and had to save it. So that is Jan Dragoon up into 9th position right now. There you see the two of them. Now I'm about to see a replay of it, but yeah, I've just had a look back to it, and it is what I was saying. Dragoon had a look, Poom went defensive, and then that distracted him slightly, and he got offline and a little wide midway through the corner, and through went Jan Dragoon. Shepard has now got Magorgi, and it was a very brave move. He attacked him through the Dunlop curve. It looks as if Magorgi had a little twitch, just like the one that took Fabio Sixter out of the race earlier on. And Chris Shepard was finally able to get through into 11th position, and we're going to see a replay of that as well. Goodness, Szymon, you're on form with these replays today. That's a lag spike. That was not everyone suddenly flying off into the wall. You'll be glad to hear. So you're going to see Owen have a twitch about there. There it is. And Shepard is able to dive through on the inside of the Degners and keep it within the track limits, all importantly. Good move.
That was a very brave move. I know what Chris is like, and he doesn't hold back.
He's got Poom now too. He's up to 10th.
Wow, he's man on a mission right now. He read the back of that MDR's wing that says "send it" on it, and he took that message to heart. Clearly, are we going to get hopefully a replay of this overtake as well?
Yeah, they actually made contact here. This is a really, really scary move you're about to see, and they're still fighting as we're talking. Poom's actually just been into the pits, and there is the contact between the two of them. But yeah, like I was saying, Hygo Poom coming into the pits, and it's just like you were saying, Ryan. If he keeps this up, he is going to end up pitting every 8 to 11 laps or so. He stayed out 11 laps on that stint, so that's a little longer than his previous one.
Yeah, it's
but
better.
Even so, that's going to signal the start of this pit window, and he's very lucky to still be in the race. Absolutely, but he's very lucky to still be in the race, considering those two collided at the fastest point of the circuit.
Yeah, that was a bit sketchy. I would not like to have been either of those guys right then. I would have absolutely pooped myself. But they still managed to keep it both on track. Nobody lost too much from it, so just keep going, keep your head down. Obviously, Chris is on a charge. Hygo now going to go for the undercut again. Let's see what sort of happens. But it's interesting. Wack is struggling to catch. In that the first stint, he was sort of gapping Matthias and Daniel, but he's just struggling to close them in. And the slipstream's clearly helping Daniel, and Daniel being on the back of Matthias is sort of pushing him along. But Chris is going to go for another move into 130R.
Onto Jan
Gets it
Dragoon.
done just in time.
And through he goes on Jan Dragoon now. Now we just got another brief look at the leaders, who are still close, although not quite attacking each other. Not a real scrap going on right now. But one interesting thing is that none of those three drivers have won a race yet this season, so they are all going for their first. Matthias Moose, I believe, has won a GPVWC Superleague race in the past, but I also think Stepkowski and Walker are going for their first of all time. Am I right there, Ryan?
I don't think Matthias has ever won a Super League race.
Sorry, there's Pascal Pollens taking a look at Augustin Canapino. I'll get up the stats for you.
For the other two guys, for Wack and Stepkowski. Matthias has had pole positions.
You're absolutely right. Matthias Moose has had plenty of poles. Well, he's had 2 poles, but he's had plenty of podiums now. And it's only really been this year that his career started to pick up by the looks of things. Looking at his standings, he's been a consistent points finisher over the last 3 years. But this year, he's got his first 4 podiums in very quick succession, and now challenging for what would be his first win. Stepkowski and Wok also yet to win their first races, and also got their first podiums this year. So all 3 of these drivers quite new to the limelight here, and what a pleasure to see them fighting. And that's a move there. That was Yannis Vorber on Jeffrey Fournier into 130R on the inside. A brave move for 5th position. and he's made that one stick as well. That's critical for those two drivers who are still challenging. And into the pits comes Stefan Ruhl. That's who they were challenging. But now Ruhl's out of their way. They're free to fight with each other. Stefan Ruhl down the pit lane. It's still very much wet conditions. In fact, the rain actually picked up a little bit in those last few laps. The lowest I've seen the rain percentage at was 26. And unfortunately, it's now back up to 32. I say unfortunately, although it really depends on your strategy. So it's remained fairly constant, and actually now it's creeping up a bit. It's up to 33% rain. So it has begun, 34 now, has begun to rain a bit more. Not like it's going to affect these drivers' strategies much. They're all still on those wet tyres as Ruhl goes side by side with Pushki on pit exit. Good move, and one that he needed to do as quickly as he possibly could. He's now going to be stuck behind Owen McGorky for a few corners because Owen holding his line. And the second wave of pit stops well and truly open right now. It looks as if this race could end up being a 4-stop strategy for some of these drivers.
Easily, I think, if not most, I'd say. It's crazy how quickly these wet tyres are wearing. I haven't driven this mod this year, so I haven't really tested the wet tyres. I didn't particularly know, but yeah, they seem to be flying through them. Sort of, what's that going to be? They're going to be in the sort of 6%, 5-6% a lap range. That's really high. That's almost what we'd expect from like a front-wheel drive touring car. Not from a single-seater F1 car. It's really high tyre wear, especially in the wet as well.
Ruhl just got Jan Dragoon on the straight, so Ruhl now getting up another position on a driver who's yet to make their pit stop, effectively overlapping them in the strategy now. Another lap completed for these drivers. There was a little bit of traffic for the leaders going onto the pit straight, but luckily David Young was able to keep out of the way and not impact the leading scrap. Traffic could be something that really impacts that leading scrap today, because with a circuit that's this wet, sometimes you do get quite spread out fields in terms of times, and you end up with drivers having laps put on them. Into the pits comes Yannick Buck now. Yannick struggling so far in this race, and like I said before, if it was to finish this way, he would not wrap up the championship today. It would go on to Mexico. And the longer it can go on, the better, I'd say, because I really want it to go on to the final round. But that's from a purely neutral point of view. It's nothing against Yannick Buck, of course. As much as I sound like I'm going against him today, it's nothing personal. It's just that obviously a championship fight, it's what we want to see. Around the outside there, Stefan Ruhl, good move on Chris Shepherd. Much more traction out of the hairpin. And into the pits now comes Matthias Moos. So Stepkowski will lead this race. Moos, the first of the top 3 to duck in for the second time now. And yeah, if you think about it, he's been in... so his first 2 stints have been 11 laps and then 12 lap. And if he keeps that up, as Ruhl now fights with Panzer up the inside, and another good move. Very well done, clears him. As out of the pits comes Moose in quite a lot of clean air, actually. That's what he wanted.
Wow.
But yeah, if he keeps that up, that'll be a 4-stop strategy. The only way you could do a 3-stop really is if you made your stints last maybe 14 or 15 laps, which some of these drivers have been doing. So 3 stops are still possible, but unlikely for the leaders at least. Leon Bock in the pits now. Lexo in the pits now. So we've got 20 drivers remaining in this race, and the majority of them on the lead lap. But
I think we're going to have to expect a pretty big gap, I'd say, this time round between the 2 RSR cars and Matthias Moos. Just can't. It's just whoever dives first, isn't it? Really. And in F1, they always say on the team radio opposite of what the other team's doing. But we do have yellow flags in sector 1 and 2.
It looks as if Lalu.
Like a Lalu. That's a shame for the Epic Racing squad. Hopefully get a replay here.
It's not a disaster because in conditions like these, you don't really lose that much through spins so long as you keep your nose on the car. You only lost 1 position in that, I think. Daniel Stepkowski into the pits now as well. Sorry, Lalu lost 2 positions in that. And if you keep your eye on this, we'll be able to see where he comes out in relation to Matthias Moos. Tomasz Vlok leads the race, and Moos is going to come out ahead, and that looks like a bigger gap to me.
Massive gap.
That looks like a much bigger gap. Are they going to end up with a car between them? I don't think they are, but that's sizable now. He's going to need some traffic or something to get him back into play here, unless the stint is a lot quicker. Yeah, the undercut is absolutely the more effective strategy today. The only difficulty is you can't come in too early for every stint, because otherwise you'll end up having to do 1 more pit stop than you would like to do. But the trick is going to be to pit as early as you can while keeping your strategy as it's intended to be. I've just noticed that Burst Esports is sponsored by the Bicoles team. That's interesting. I'd never seen that on their airbox before. Is that brand new?
I don't know if it's been on this car, but I've seen it on other cars. We've got one of the Epic Racing squad off.
Well, you're having another issue, I'm afraid.
It's a shame. He hasn't had sort of the best of evenings, especially compared to his teammate. Hygo's performed a bit better on this occasion. Well, we see already he was backwards there. Must lose it on the first part, the first turn.
Yeah, meanwhile Matthias Moos is carving his way through the field already, even though he came out in traffic, in clean air, as you see Lalu going for a spin. Even though he came out in clean air, he's already caught up to and past Geoffrey Fournier, which shows you just how much the tyres must be struggling at this point if you've left them out for so long. Fournier is surely going to have to pit now, and so will some of the other drivers who are yet to do so. In comes Fournier. And the gap between Wook and Moos now is only 9 seconds, despite the fact Moos has made 1 more pit stop than Wook. I think that Wook is going to have about a 5-second lead when this all shakes out. Actually, I tell you what, Stepkowski's last lap was quicker than Moos's, and he's got back to about 3.5 seconds behind him, maybe. The timing sheet is a little tricky to keep up with right now because the gaps are being exaggerated a little from what I can see, but anyway, pit lane's still pretty busy now with Dragoon and Pushki. And sorry, what were you going to say?
If I was Wack, I'd try and extend as much as possible.
Yeah.
For the next few stints, he was already a fair bit off the back of Matthias and Daniel, and probably, well, it's definitely even further now. He needs to do something different. Like I say, he's gone 3 laps longer than Matthias on this stint, and he was it 2 laps on the first stint as well?
I think so too. See, he's going to be struggling on those tyres now, but if he can struggle to the extent where if he can avoid struggling to the extent where he drops behind Matthias Moos, then by the time they make their next couple of pit stops, as Moos now passes Yannis Wilburn on the straight, gets back up into 2nd overall, then that will effectively cycle Wook back through in front of Matthias Moos by virtue of having made 1 fewer pit stop. The difficulty is that you have to do some extremely long stints in the process, which is going to make you vulnerable to Matthias Moos behind. So you're absolutely right. I think Wook does need to do something different at this point in time. Otherwise, he's going to come out behind a bunch of the other cars anyway, as Stepkowski gets past Wilburn on the straight. So Stepkowski back up into 3rd position.
Definitely needed that if you wanted any sort of chance of hanging on to Matthias for this stint.
Absolutely.
The gap has come down as well.
It is coming down. It looks
more dramatically than the first stint, I'd say.
It does look to me as if Stepkowski is the faster driver right now. Actually, here's a fun fact just quickly. It doesn't really affect much right now, but the best lap, the fastest lap in this race, is held by 2 separate drivers. Would you like to guess who? It's Matthias Moos and Daniel Stepkowski. There's the move now. Leon Block up the inside of Sandeep Singh. going through. There we go. That's not necessarily for position because, well, it is technically for position. There's a difference in strategy between the two right now. But yeah, absolutely identical fastest laps of the race between Moose and Stepkowski right now. But Stepkowski has set his much more recently and is chasing down Matthias Moose. And it's only going to become a little more dramatic later on in the stint as Moose's tyres start to go off before Stepkowski's do. They're both catching Tomasz Wok hand over fist now, but that's to be expected. If Wok, he just needs to hold on for as long as he can. I think what he's got to do now is he's got to pit the lap before Moose is going to overtake him, which is going to be difficult to predict. But basically, if it looks as if Moose is going to overtake him, pit immediately. Or alternatively, he could stay out and try to hold up Moose to give Stepkowski the run.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is a possibility. It's probably less likely to happen. Obviously, the RSR and Red Archer team were good friends, so there's not going to be any foul play, definitely not. But I think more likely he's going to get to a point where sort of Matthias is in a 1 to 2 second range and, like say, pit just before. But he's managed to extend a decent amount on this stint. Obviously, the first stint not quite as much because he probably wasn't expecting the undercut to be as strong, but he's reacting well to it. So he's probably got another lap or two on this stint, I'd say. He just doesn't want to let Matthias get ahead of him. That's the worst thing that could happen.
Another good move there from Leon Block, passing Augustin Canapino now. Leon is going to be in contention for potentially even the top 5 in this race at this rate. He is very, very consistent out there. Hasn't made a single mistake that I've seen just yet. Here's Daniel Stepkowski, another very consistent driver whose only mistake was his slightly suboptimal start, which allowed Matthias Moose to get between the two RSR cars. But really, I think I'd be asking a bit too much for him to keep that position, considering he was on the wetter side of the circuit. Another lap done. And Yannis Vorburn repasses Chris Shepherd now. Oh, Shepherd's going to slide. Shepherd's touched the wall, sorry. Good save from Chris Shepherd, who's on very old, worn tyres now, very much overdue a pit stop. But did lose that 6th place to Yannis Vorburn, and he's had another big twitch through the spoon curve. Another lap completed. Tomasz Wok is doing exactly what you suggested he had to do. He's staying out for as long as he possibly can.
He should box this lap, you'd hope.
I think so too. I think he might just have extended his stint enough to go for a 3-stop here, as Canapino fights with Singh and Poon, but we're going to see a replay of Shepherd going into the wall. It's as he lights up the tyres here. You see he's on the damper part of the grid. Oh, and around he goes. Ooh,
good save though.
It is good, but unfortunately that's going to have cost him some time and potentially damage. Shepherd in the pits, Canapino in the pits, Singh in the pits, Panzer passing Poom up the inside. Nice bit of alliteration. Stephen Lexo has just made up a few places as well in all of that.
Novak in the pits.
No, and he's now got Matthias Moose within a second of him. It's got to be this lap, surely. He's got to pit, otherwise Moose is going to pass him on the road.
Yeah, you'd really hope so. Let's see what happens. It's either going to go one way or the other. He's going to pit now, or he's going to end up trying to hold up Matthias for Daniel.
If he comes out,
trying to run his own race as well, so.
If he pits now, I think he's timed this to perfection. Come on, Tomasz. And into the pits he comes. So Tomasz Wok comes in right as we were suggesting that he should. And he's actually employed both strategies there. Not only has he pitted on exactly the right lap, but he has also bunched Moose right back up to Stepkowski. Brilliant team play for Tomasz Wok there. And he's going to come out, I think he is going to be passed by Stefan Roth temporarily. No, he's not actually. He's got enough of the... Or it's going to be close between him and Stefan. That could throw a spanner in the works. Through goes Stefan Roth now. But of course, they are on offset strategies. Roth has been out there for about 9 laps now.
So Fournier through as well.
And Fournier goes through as well. Let's see how long he's been out for.
Fastest man on track, just at the fastest lap.
And Fournier's only been out there for 3 laps. Fournier could be in contention for a podium here.
You can never rule Jeffrey Fournier out in a wet race. Yeah,
and his fastest lap has just been yoinked away by an entire second. Yannis Vorburn flying. Oh, Yannick Bock! Bock has spun, he's clobbered the wall, and he's lost his rear wing. Has he been punted? Has he collided with someone? Well, whatever the case, Yannick Bock, it looks to me as if he will not wrap up the championship today. It depends on what Leon does, but here we see he was fighting with, and he's out of the race. He's out of the race. He was fighting with Philip Pushkit. Does he get hit? He does, actually. I've just seen the replay ahead. But I'm not convinced he wasn't coming into the pits too late. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, he was going to cut the track, I think.
He's trying to come into the pits, but he was going to go to the left-hand side of the commitment cone. I would say that is Yannick being unpredictable. I don't think that's Philip Pushkit's fault.
No, I agree. You know, Philip's committed to the throttle at that point he made, so not much intention of him for the pits there.
It was a very late call. I don't know when he decided to make that stop, but it looks as if it was very last second.
I mean, he would have been
penalised
regardless.
Absolutely. The leaders back within half a second of each other now. Now, as I was saying before that all happened, as Philip Pushkin now fights with Hygo Poom, as I was saying, Jeffrey Fournier has now thrown a real spanner into the works of this race, because not only is he one of the fastest drivers out there, but now he's ahead of Tomasz Vok with only 3 lap older tyres. Fournier might also just about be able to squeeze out the 3-stop here. As through goes Pushkit, and through might go Pollens. Ooh, that's close. Has to give Poom the room into the chicane. And through the final turn now, and Poom does come into the pits and commits to it earlier. And good to see they kept it clean. Yes, another thing I was about to say was that Yannis Vorburn set
Vok is on inters!
And Tomasz Vok has put on intermediate tyres.
Wow, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Caitlin.
That's okay, wow. He's put on intermediate tyres on a circuit that is getting wetter, I think. It's 29% rain as we talk. I'll keep an eye on that. But from my screen, it looks like the rain is still coming down fairly hard here. I think he's taken that alternate strategy thing quite literally here. What this also might be is he might feel that inters are going to last him longer and not lose him enough time to justify staying out on the wets more. Well, so this is a real gamble from Tomasz Vok. No one has run the inters in this race so far, so he's very much the experimental guinea pig and doesn't appear to be losing much time to the cars ahead of him right now, but the fact he's the only driver who's done it shows that this is an unpopular decision.
According to the YouTube chat, it stopped raining for 1 lap.
Stopped raining for 1 lap?
I'm guessing Tomasz saw the rain stop, thought he'd... I think it would have been too early anyway to commit to inters. Personally, I would have stuck for the wets, but I'm guessing he thought that might have been his chance to really, really make up the time. But
you think this is all over for Tomasz, don't you?
A little bit. We'll keep an eye on his pace. It's it's raining quite a lot still. 30% like rain intensity is pretty harsh. I found it, I was struggling in another league on, with 5% rain intensity. It adds up quickly to the surface of the track. So I think he might jump the gun a little bit there, but his pace doesn't look too bad, to be fair, so we'll keep an eye on him, see what happens. I mean, he's caught on the back of Fournier and Roux out pretty quickly.
Tomasz's last lap was his personal best of the race. He, of course, is on lighter fuel than he has been on his wet stint, and he's been in cleaner air as well. He's admittedly now he's catching Fournier. Look, he's on the back of Fournier and Roux, who are fighting ahead of him. This may not. This may not be over yet for Tomasz Vok. Look at Fournier and Stefan Roll. Their stints are separated by about 6 laps, so this could end up being for position. Round the outside is Stefan Roll. Fournier on the inside. Good move. He's made it stick, and he's made up that position. Very nicely done. And now, what can Tomasz Vok do? on those inters that actually seem to be dealing him quite well here. Out of the final corner, into the pits comes Royal. So Royal in. Tomasz Vok takes 4th place. He's on the back of Fournier. That lap won't have been as fast because he'd have been slightly held up, but that is to be expected.
Yeah,
we're over half the way through the race now. Matthias Moos still leading, but only just over Stepkowski. Behind them, it's a real mix and match depending on the pit stop strategies that these drivers have employed. Stefan Roll, presumably still on a 4-stop. Fournier and Wok, presumably on a 3-stop, depending on how long the inters last. And Stefan Roll,
to absolute perfection.
Yeah, and another thing to note is that he has not followed Wok's example. He is still on the full wets here, so still Wok's decision unpopular, despite the fact I actually think he's going pretty quickly right now.
Yes, he's looking pretty solid. I'm pleasantly surprised. Doesn't mean I'm not still scared, but we'll see what happens for the rest of the race. You know, he knows how the car feels. We're just sat in the commentary box here. He knows what he's feeling underneath him. He's done the testing. So let's see if it's paid off. And he had to take a gamble at the end of the day. It was probably a bigger gamble than I thought it was going to be. I thought a 3-stop would have been a big enough gamble, but it's working for now. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that one and just let him keep his head down, see what happens.
A few more people joining us in the YouTube chat. Hello to Ruben Machedi, another extremely quick driver who has driven in a few Super League races so far this season. We'll say Aidan Millwood, who makes some fantastic YouTube videos about the history of motorsport. Hello, Aidan, and thank you for tuning in. Hope you're all enjoying GPVWC Super League on this very wet and rainy day at Suzuka, with 20 laps remaining in this Grand Prix, and the leaders separated by not really that much, about 2 car lengths maybe at some of the slower corners on this circuit, maybe heading up to 5 car lengths on the straights. Chris Shepherd into the braking zone on the back of Jan Dragoon. It looks as if Shepherd was maybe gaining some time earlier on, although I'm not sure his strategy really worked out that well for him. Steven Lexo into the pits now. And that puts Pascal Pollens back into the top 10 on his particular recovery drive. And there is... who was that into turn 1? Jan Dragoon and Chris Shepherd, actually. So they're still fighting over those positions. My apologies, kind of difficult to work out who's where when they're all changing positions going across the start-finish line. Tomasz Vok is absolutely keeping up with Geoffrey Fournier here. He's done 3 laps on those inters so far, and they've been a little all over the place, but only really because on his 2nd and 3rd laps he's caught up to Geoffrey Fournier and got a little stuck. But when he's in clean air, which admittedly he was only in clean air for about 1 lap, but he's been quick into the pits now. Matthias Moos once again trying to fend off Stepkowski with the preemptive undercut by pitting earlier. And with 20 laps remaining in this race, he's going to have to stop again for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm surprised Stepkowski let him undercut there.
And Fournier's in too, so Fournier's still going for a 4-stopper.
That's good in as well.
Indeed. Indeed it is.
One person from in front of him, so that's a start. And we're back in the position again where you give it a lap, Vac will be probably holding up Moose, but as we see, Owen McGorgy gets a penalty.
One of the 2 MDR drivers doing a wonderful job today, but unfortunately McGorgy has fallen afoul of the vicious track limits here that caught out so many drivers earlier on. This seems to have happened a bit later, so presumably he has been given warnings and he's built up those warning points. Seemed to happen a bit later on in the lap. I think it happened at the spoon curve, so I don't think that's one of the glitchy penalties. There's Chris Shepherd now, attacking Jan Dragoon. Matthias Moos on the back of Tomasz Vok. This is important, Ryan. This is really important.
Yeah, this could help Stepkowski out so much.
Absolutely.
You know, the only reason after the first pit stop that Stepkowski had any sort of chance was because of that traffic that Moose had. But Wack just gets a little bit loose on the exit and makes it pretty easy on the run up to 130R.
And Moose, on his brand new, fresh, wet tyres, goes back through into second position in this race. But will it be second for long? It all depends on what Daniel Stepkowski does. It's a very short pit lane here, partly as a result of, well, it's short, and also partly because it's on the inside of the final and first corners, and you cut a little bit of, as Jeffrey Fournier passes Yannis Vorburn. But yes, you cut a little bit of the lap distance out.
Yeah, just
Good move from Fournier on Vorburn. The reason I'm not getting too excited about this fight is because these two are quite separated in terms of their strategies, with Fournier having only just stopped. But even so, important for Fournier not to get held up for too long. I'm a little surprised he didn't try to stay out a little longer.
Oh, was that Chris Shepherd trying to make a move in the background? Yes, it was on Jan Dragoon.
Yeah.
These guys have been at it all race, it feels like.
Leon Bock in the pits, Jan Dragoon stays out, Pascal Pollens is in the pits behind them. And there's the move again, as they're now up into 10th position in this race. Up the inside, and Shepherd does make the move now, a move that he's been trying to make for a long time. Leon Bock comes out in 13th place. I presume he's going to make some more positions up. I hope he does anyway. It's not going to be a good way to wrap up the championship if Yannis still wins it despite being out of the race, having made that mistake on the way into the pits. I at least want it to go to the next round and see it wrapped up by Yannick winning the race or something, because that's a much more satisfactory ending. A triumphant victor is so much better than a win by default from a driver DNFing and just being far enough ahead in terms of points. It would still be a well-deserved championship, of course. It's just not the fairy tale ending to the series that you want to see. Matthias Moos, fastest lap of anyone, having cleared Tomasz Fock, and he's cleared him by a long way on that last lap there. He's set a 1:42.171, which is a matter of seconds faster than Wock's last lap, I'm afraid to say. Wock's last lap in the 1:47, so about 5 seconds slower now. And Jeffrey Fournier beats that time. So Jeffrey Fournier now with the provisional point, don't forget, there is a point for fastest lap in these races. In 5th position, 1:42.089. It's amazing how spread out the fastest laps are in this race, even within the top 10, because you have some drivers very nearly breaking into the 1:41s. And then, of course, you have the drivers who haven't been on fresh tyres for a while, such as Chris Shepherd and Jan Dragoon, who are still in the 1:45s here. Yannis Vorburn exits the pits side by side with Sandeep Singh. Comes out just ahead. And behind Jan Dragoon now. Now, when Stepkowski pits, he is almost definitely going to come up behind Matthias Moos at this point because of how quickly Moos is going. Stepkowski is trying to extend his stint, it seems, because I was expecting him in at the end of the last lap. And if he stays out this next lap, I think that's pretty much going to confirm that he has given up on the whole beating Moos at his own game thing. No, he's still at it, comes into the pits. So Stepkowski comes in, Moos will retake the lead, and I think Tomasz Fock is going to retake second and once again become RSR's best bet for the win here.
Yeah, interesting that Daniel went trying to extend. That was 2 laps extra on Matthias, but I think an RSR win's kind of out the window at this point, unfortunately.
Matthias Moos is
not quite working.
Unflappable, isn't he?
I mean, 10 seconds?
Wow.
That's crazy in 2 laps.
He has genuinely built that in 2 laps, genuinely. You have to remember, though, he absolutely needs to do this because he still needs to stop. Stepkowski still needs to stop again, presumably. Actually, it's going to be close to Stepkowski. He's got 16 laps to do. He might just be able to do that. And actually, Tomasz Fock lets him through there. Tomasz Fock, when did he last stop? Well, they're all going to have to stop again, aren't they? So what I just said goes out the window. Matthias Moos has genuinely gained 10 seconds in about 2 laps there. That's an actual that's an actual gap that he's built up there. That's not some kind of net order weirdness. He is genuinely that quick at this point in the race.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, Matthias is not a fan of the wet weather. All the past 2 weeks he's been moaning about Singapore, and then coming into Suzuka expecting rain again. He's just complained about the wet weather. He's not a fan of the wet weather, but it's working for him. I'm sure he'll love it after today.
He retired in Singapore, didn't he? So this is a bit of a redemption for Matthias Moos here in these wet conditions. The wet conditions are really up in the air. It really depends on what kind of setup you bring to the circuit and what kind of circuit it is. Like, back when I first drove in the wet, for example, I hated it. I thought I was terrible because I did so badly in my first few wet races. And then later on in my career, I started to genuinely do really well in wet races. And I mean, I scored my first GPVWC points on my first... Ooh, that's close there with Lexo rejoining the circuit. Right in the path of a couple of other drivers like Leon Bock there. Ooh, it wasn't Lexo actually, that was McCorkey, who's a lap down after his penalty. Nearly a lap down anyway.
Rack's been in the pits.
Oh no, it was Lexo. Oh yes!
Pitted. I'm hoping and assuming that was for wet tyres. Can't quite see, my eyesight's not the best, but it looks like it.
Still look into it to me.
No, they're wet tyres.
They are wet, they are wet. He's come out in 5th position now, but he has, importantly, gone for a bit of an undercut on his rivals. He's got to do 15 laps, that is doable. There is Leon now to the inside of Sandeep Singh. Through into 8th position. Leon Bock, I think, is going to come out of this about 6th. Stefan Rohr is up to 3rd for the time being. And his last stop was on lap 32, so he will also need to stop again. It's Moose leading from Stepkovsky, then Rohr. But where will Tomasz Szwok be when this all shakes out? I reckon it's going to be 2nd ahead of Stepkovsky here.
It'll be a good effort for Tomasz if he does end up 2nd. You know, he looked really dominant in the first stint, and he's, you know, the undercut was so strong. He's been trying to play catch up all the way through, and even with the like, he's looked really strong. So I think it'd be well deserved if he does end up P2.
Indeed. Riven Machete saying, I love rain weather. Yes, indeed. Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I do as well. It grew on me.
The thing I like about it is that sometimes you do races where you go into them not being particularly competitive, and then it starts to rain, and others take it way more cautiously than they potentially should, and you're able to make up places. Of course, the difficulty, as Pascal Pollens flies past Jan Dragoon, the difficulty is if you end up not being cautious enough and you end up making a mistake. But so long as you're driving within your ability, you should be fine. It's the only reason that back in 2018, I think I did GPVWC day karting, and it was wet and it was greasy and it was great, and it was the only reason I was able to beat Alex Siebel that year, which is still one of my biggest flexes. I beat Alex Siebel in a go-kart because quite simply I would absolutely not have been able to do so in the dry. But anyway, less about me. It really does depend on how you feel about these wet conditions, and it can change from time to time depending on how you're feeling on any given day, really.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you say about you need to be not too cautious, but that was sort of what happened to me in VEC. You know, I felt I went overconfident, started driving out of my abilities. So the guys really need to, you know, they need to be pushed as hard as possible, but sort of keeping a level head on themselves as well. Like the devil and the angel.
Yeah, Canapino and Puma having a bit of a scrap over 12th position. Puma went up the inside of Canapino into the Degners, forced Canapino into the gravel, Canapino will say. And then Augustin was able to come back at him on the exit and up into the hairpin, but had to settle. Here's Pascal Pollens on Sandeep Singh. Going through. Sanik's been on a little bit of an alternate strategy here today. I think probably trying to leave his car out as long as he can some of the time, as wide he goes. But it seems that every time we pan to Sandeep, he's being passed by someone. Not always a bad thing, because if you're on an alternate strategy... Sorry, let's cut away from that for a second. Here's Leon Buck now. This is on Chris Shepherd. And through on the inside. So, 13 laps to go now. And it's probably about now that we should expect Matthias Moos and Daniel Stepkowski into the pits for the last time. Because this is a good length for a final stint. This could be Stepkowski's last chance to win this race, really. He's got to get in before Matthias, I would say.
Either that, or he just goes for the full stint, 15 laps. Could also do that.
Oh yeah, no, he was the guy who pitted with 16 laps to go, right? Yeah. Okay, so that... You're absolutely right.
He'd need to be 2 or 3 seconds behind, I think, to be able to pit, like to undercut Matthias, and it work.
I know, because we've had some really big undercuts so far today. Big twitch from Fournier, good save that. We've had some really big undercuts, but yeah, you're right. It was only 16 laps. In my mind, it was about 20 or something.
To do it safely, he needs to cut a bit of time off, but it's sort of hit a bit of a stalemate now.
Matthias Moos pitted about 3 laps before. Surely he needs to stop again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Good shout, Ryan. That could still be a chance for Stepkowski to win the race. He's actually gaining on Matthias Moos right now. He's within 5 seconds again, when before the gap was out to about 10 seconds. So he is gaining, and quite a lot as well. But is it going to be enough? I mean, presumably, if he's gaining this much, he's intending to make another stop, maybe? It would be a shame if he did. I mean, to have made his stint that long... I'm not sure he can stop again, really. I don't think he can afford to.
Yeah, I don't either. It's either gonna... to be honest, I'm trying to work out in my head, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a stroke of genius or backfire massively.
But surely Moose can't do 21 laps, can he?
No, Moose will pit, but the issue he's got is, last time Matthias was 5 seconds quicker on the undercut. So even if Matthias pits, it'll only take like 3 laps, and he'd sort of be onto the back of Stepkowski. So
potentially.
Unless he's got something up his sleeve.
This is all getting super interesting right now. The thing that's throwing me for a loop is the fact that Stepkowski is actually catching Moose right now. With the way that this race has been going, you wouldn't expect that as Jeffrey Fournier comes in for his last stop. But you wouldn't expect that to be the natural conclusion to this race, would you? You would expect Stepkowski to still be dropping back at this point, and then Moose to make a pit stop, Stepkowski to leave it out, and then Moose to try to pass him on the road. But the fact that Stepkowski is catching Moose is throwing me for a loop, as I said. Could it be that Moose thinks he can go the full way and is slowing his car down to a crawl to try to prevent his tyres from going off?
I don't think so. I think Matthias needs to make a genuine stop. But I think if I was Stepkowski, I'd do the opposite this lap of whatever Matthias does. He's at that 3 second window. If he undercuts Matthias this lap, that he's in a range now where even though he has made what would be an extra stop, he could. He could make it work. So let's see what Matthias does. If Matthias boxes, I guess Daniel will go at the end.
It's all looking a lot sunnier, I guess, joke intended, from Daniel Stepkowski now. It genuinely looks if he's suddenly back in contention to win this again. Let's see what the two drivers do this lap. So Moose pits. Stepkowski stays out, and now, in the last 10 laps of the race, we are going to see presumably a charge from Matthias Moos to try to catch back up to the tail of Daniel Stepkowski, who will be staying out and maintaining his tyres. Where will Tomasz Vok come out in all of this as well? I don't think he's going to come out ahead of Matthias Moos. Ruhl is in the pits as well, so he's not going to get involved in this. So Stepkowski is going to lead by about 20 seconds. And now, Moose has got to gain that in 10 laps. Can he do it?
Yeah, I think he can. It's gonna. I don't know. It's gonna be tricky. That's for sure. I think. Oh, it was so close to working out for Daniel there. That was the lap where the race was going to be made or broken for him. I think Matthias, he's already gained like almost 2 seconds, and it's not even done a full lap yet.
Writing this race off way too soon.
Sector 1.
You're writing this race off way too soon, my friend. These conditions. Sure? I'm not sure of anything right now, admittedly, but
you've gained 4 seconds in just under half a lap on his out lap.
But that also might not entirely be true, because the timing screen today has been a little tricky, kind of showing the gaps a bit. Like the fluctuation of the gaps has been about 4 seconds in a lap. You know, at one point they're like 13 seconds apart, and then another part they're 17 seconds apart. So I'm not really I'd be more inclined to trust a visual gap right now than one on the timing screen. But even so, the actual lap times aren't going to lie, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Apparently he was 2 seconds quicker in sector 2, according to Szymon Frelik, who's keeping an eye on these things. Thank you, Szymon. But I want to see it over a full lap. Here we go again then.
Lee Davison in the chat saying that he thinks he'll find the first sort of 10 to 15 seconds quite quickly. It could be possibly. He might have these tyres might be unbelievable for the first sort of 2-3 laps, and then drop off. We'll just have to see. But this is not the sort of strategy I expected from Stepkowski. It's brave, and he's got nothing else to lose really.
I expected this more from Tomasz Łok, actually, but unfortunately Łok's been a bit anonymous these last few laps. But anyway, this is not the way we expected the race to end, but we are about to get a real showdown here. Moose with the fastest lap time of all in the first sector at least. Leon Bock in the pits for the last time, a crucial stop for him, and where he comes out and where he finishes will decide whether the championship ends today or goes on to the next round. But we've, as much as there is a championship to be won today, we've been very much distracted by this lead scrap between RSR and Matthias Moose, and rightfully so, because this is fantastic and will go right to the end. It's all going to come down to the lap times here. Now, when we see a driver on 7 or so lap fresher tyres than another driver, so far today it's always been quite an easy overtake, but when it's over the win, I'm not sure that it necessarily will be. I think Stepkowski is going to employ everything in his power to try to keep the lead of the race, even if Moose has about twice the grip of that powered by RSR car. And that is another thing that is going to really play into this being a very close finish to the race. If Moose gets Stepkowski, then surely the race is over, because there's no way Stepkowski is going to have the tyres to fight him back again. But there's still so much time between the two of them, so much air that Moose has to plough his way through. Stepkowski's last lap was a 1:44.4, so that's easy to remember, 1:4.44. And then Matthias Moose's, please give me that game, 1:41.6. It's the fastest lap of anyone so far in this race. So he gained 2.8 seconds. If he continues to do that, he will absolutely find his way up to the back of Daniel Stepkowski by the end of this race. But will he pass him? It's an entirely different thing. Volburn pits for the last time now. Rural goes back through into 5th. And Ryan, what a tense end to the race we're set up for here.
Yeah. I'm sort of trying to not panic inside, RSR's never had a win in Super League, so this is pretty nerve-wracking times for myself. But either way, regardless of who gets the win today out of, the guys in the sort of top 5 have all ran a great race today, and they've all been on like completely different strategies. It's crazy how many, usually we see a lot of people with undercutting by like a lap or overcutting by a lap. generally just one lap the opposite way of what somebody else has done. But you know, we've seen different strategies from pretty much everybody today, and it's really made for an interesting race. And it's been a lot cleaner than Singapore as well, which is nice to see. We haven't seen much contact between drivers. We've got more drivers at this point in time, at least, still competing as well, which is always nice to see.
The yellow flag just then was David Yunt going for a spin on the second Degner, but he has resumed the race, and there he is actually, just being passed by Philip Puschke and Leon Buck, who are fighting over 8th position. It's pretty much confirmed at this point that the championship will go on to the next round, because Leon is running in 9th position, and if he was to stay there, then the race would go on. The more points he can gain now, of course, means the more likely it is the championship will go down to the final round. As ambitious as that is. Although then again, I thought it was ambitious to say that Leon will come away from today with the championship still alive. I really thought we were going to see Yannick Buck win it. He's out of the race now. Leon Buck still continuing on, and on the back of Philip Puschke, who he has to hope and pray sees him coming through. And here we go then. So Leon Buck goes through into 8th place on the straight. Nicely done, well done, good move. Up into 8th place goes Leon Buck now. The gap between the leaders, 9 seconds. It's down into the single digits now, and Matthias Moos could be on for another fastest lap of the race on this this time. Not that that really matters, although that would give him another point towards the championship. Out of the final corner he comes. His lap time, strong. Not quite the fastest that they've seen. In fact, he dropped a little on that lap, at least from his best lap, not from Stepkowski. It was a 1:42.6, and Stepkowski's lap was a 1:45.6. So 3 seconds of a difference between the two of them, about what it has been. Matthias Moos still continuing to gain as the timer keeps ticking down. The ticker on lap 47 out of 53 now. How's your ticker, Ryan?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I was making a pun. How's your heart rate right now?
How's my heart rate? Through the roof. I've honestly just been staring at, you know, at the delta between Daniel and Matthias. I haven't even been focusing on the rest of the race.
And Chris
Lee's
Shepherd
obviously
passes Philip
keeping us
Puschke.
updated as well in the chat. Thank you for that, Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Chris Shepherd just passed Philip Puschke for 9th place. And the fastest lap point now goes away from Matthias Moos, because Yannis Wilburn has become the first driver in the 140s. Great lap, 140.990, only just under that 101 second gap. Not that that really means anything, but anyway. Leon Buck now on the back of Robin Panzer. Needs to do it cleanly and quickly. There's Matthias Moos. Looks to have been another 3 seconds taken out of Daniel Stepkowski on that last lap. Out of the final turn. He'll be on the back of Daniel Stepkowski in 2 laps now. 2 laps and he's going to be right up with him. 3 laps and he might have a chance to pass him. But there's only 2 more laps after that. And if Stepkowski can defend for his life, there is still a chance that we could see the first ever powered by RSR victory today. Leon Buck there, still just aiming to keep the championship alive and doing as much as he needs to do. It hasn't been the greatest day for him as far as his own personal campaign has gone. And 8th position is not as good as we would expect from Leon Buck, but he could still get 7th here. There's Pascal Pollens on the back of Philip Puschke. A big chain of cars flying through the spoon curve. Panzer, Buck, Shepherd, Puschke, Pollens, Sandeep Singh's probably not that far behind. And Pollens passes Puschke on the straight. Goes up to P10. 5 laps to go now, Ryan, including, well, starting from the next one we go on to, because of course lap 53 counts as a lap.
Yeah.
And a bit of a slide from Leon Buck as he still pressures Robin Panzer for that 7th position.
Yeah, Panzer's doing a decent job. You know, it's such a good battle here between 7th down to 12th. Panzer's ran pretty quiet race, I'd say. He's just been quietly, plucking away, doing the job. But he's got a pretty big train behind him now, and obviously a massive gap in front as well to Yanis Wolborn. So he's gonna have to hold on for dear life, 4 more laps to go.
Right. Yeah, I've just done some more calculations. Turns out it's actually 8th place that Leon needs to keep the championship alive. So if he loses a place here, he could be in trouble. Although if he's 9th with fastest lap, that also keeps it alive. He will not get fastest lap in this race at this rate, because Wilburn's lap looks a little too unassailable right now. But even so, he won't need it if he can stay 8th or pass Panzer for 7th. There's another brief yellow flag. Hygo Puma appears to be off the road right now, just recovering. That means that Stephen Lexo is a bit more safe in 15th place. It looks as if we may still get points for MDR in this race now.
Yeah, that'd be pretty nice for them, for sure.
The gap between the leaders under 3 seconds. That's about, it's about 3 seconds now, but yeah, that's about what Matthias is gaining in a lap. So another lap and he might be on him. You can see him and his spray train in the distance. His spray plume.
He's got him in his eyes now, and he's just going to set, he'll set the target as the rear wing of Daniel. Sometimes it's tricky when you're on your own and you're plucking away. As we see, whoa, that's a bit risky, going around the outside. He just
Nicely
about
done.
hangs on to it as well. Good effort there by Pascal. Doing well after his penalty at the start of the race.
Oh, good point. Yeah, it's been a good recovery drive from Pascal Pollins here. 2.8 seconds separating the leaders going onto this lap. This could be the lap that Matthias Moos catches Daniel Stepkowski. But how long will it take him to pass him? Can he pass him? We've got this lap and then 3 more to go. It's going to be so tricky for Daniel Stepkowski here.
Yeah, I mean, the last lap was only, it'd come down a bit. It was a 1.5 seconds faster, wasn't Matthias? So we see Bok going for a move on the inside, but probably going to struggle to get the traction down.
This is quite precarious from Leon, actually, because if he loses a position, he could well lose the championship then and there. But it would certainly help him to pass Panzer.
Yeah, he's probably never worked so hard for an 8th place in his life.
Indeed. It's still a big ask for him to actually win the championship at this stage. It would need some really bad luck for his brother and teammate, but whatever the case, it would be good to keep it going. Up towards the Casio Triangle they go now.
We're under a second now between the leaders.
And the leaders are within a second. If there was DRS, this would be even more exciting. Although, to be honest, if there was DRS, this race would probably be over by now. Here we go towards the Casio Triangle. As we continue to watch Leon Bok, don't worry, I'll let you know if anything does happen between Matthias and Stepkowski while we're watching this. There is Matthias Moos. Out of the final corner, you can see Daniel Stepkowski up ahead. No DRS, the track is on 34% rain. They'd need it to go down to 15% to allow the DRS to be active. Through turn 1. This lap and then 2 more remaining at the end of this one. It would take a brave person to bet against Matthias Moos at this point. But Daniel Stepkowski is still in the prime position to win this race. He is still leading, has the clean track in front of him. And it all depends on whether he can fend off Matthias Moos for the next 3 laps on 7-lap older tyres.
It was definitely the right call. He had to take the gamble.
For sure, for sure.
But let's see what Matthias does. He's had relatively clean air up until this sort of lap. Daniel might just pull something out of the bag. You never know what can happen. So yeah, I mean, look at the fights all the way through the pack. I mean, how these guys are managing to hold on with so much spray and the tyres, worn as much as they are, doing a great job throughout the field.
Okay,
Not just at the
straight
front.
coming up. There's a straight coming up. This could be the opportunity for Matthias Moos now.
This has
Here we
been
go,
prime
Stepkowski.
opportunity.
They both looked a little twitchy on the exit, but that's to be expected. I don't think he's going to be close enough up towards 130R. Of course, there's another straight very soon after this into the braking zone for the Casio Triangle. Matthias will be better on the brakes, but he's not alongside Daniel Stepkowski, so it doesn't matter yet. And Leon Buck makes a very important move for 7th position. He gets Robin Pansar, and through as well goes Pascal Pollant into 8th position. Now, the leaders are on the start-finish straight. There's a crashed car to the outside, but they pass it. And Matthias Moos is going to go to the left-hand side. He's going around the outside for the lead. Matthias Moos takes it, Kimi Räikkönen style in the wet, around the outside of the first corner. Fantastic stuff. And Matthias Moos has driven the race of his life. This is exactly what he needed to do. The crash car, by the way, Stephen Lexer has just been into the wall at turn 1. So unfortunately, it looks as if MDR are not going to be scoring any points today after a very, very strong effort. Here is Jeffrey Fournier now, and he gets around the outside of Thomas Vogt, but runs off. I think Vogt is still going to maintain 3rd position. Where's he gone? Yes, he's rejoined behind them. So unfortunately for Jeffrey, he's made that made a little bit of a hash of that. But anyway, still in 5th position. Stefan Ruhl is the other driver involved in that. It looks as if there was a driver on the outside of the final corner before. Yeah, so Lexo lost it out of the final corner and hit the wall, lost his front wing, then went into turn 1 and presumably didn't know he didn't have a front wing, went in way too quickly and slammed into the barriers on the outside and finished off the jobs. So unfortunately, Stephen Lexo retiring from this race very late on, and that's gutting. And a drive-through penalty for Fournier because he has just spun on the exit of the Degners. So Fournier spins on the exit of the Degners, gets the penalty we saw being given to drivers at the start, and Sandeep Singh's on the grass, and somehow keeps it on the road.
It is all kicking off in the last 2 laps.
Absolutely. Now, as you said, it is absolutely the right thing that Stepkowski stayed up for this strategy, because if he had pitted, then he would have been guaranteed a 2nd place finish. Of course, he's going to finish 2nd anyway, but there was always a chance that he could have done better. Heiko Poom is rear wingless right now. That's why you keep seeing yellow flags, because he's gliding his way back to the pits. Just wants to finish this race at this point, and who can blame him? He got this far, and that's going to give the final point to his teammate Jakub Lalu. Looked at if it happened in the Degners as well. And the leaders are on the final lap of the race, separated by 5 seconds, which shows you just how much faster Matthias Moos is at this point. Fournier comes in to serve his penalty. I think he'll maintain 5th position, because Jannis Wilburn was a long way behind. So Jeffrey Fournier will maintain 5th position. But remember, going on to that last lap, he was challenging for 3rd. The real fight on this last lap is going to be between Wok and Ruhl for that 3rd position, to see if RSR can get their first double podium finish of the season.
Yeah, that's a shame for Fournier, but not too much lost. You won't be too disappointed with that one, but Wax sort of got a hold on, especially, you know, the run into 130R seems to be a pretty popular overtaking spot, so as long as he can hold on through 130R, I think he should be okay. But say that Stefan Ruhl's closing up to the back of him. Stefan's definitely got the tyre advantage in this situation, but they're getting a bit dicey already.
They are indeed.
I don't like watching this.
Sorry, we're going to have to cut away from that soon, because down into the final chicane comes Matthias Moos. It's been a fantastic drive. Despite making 1 more pit stop than the 2 RSR guys, he's been so much quicker that it just hasn't mattered. Matthias Moos gets his first ever GPVWC Super League victory in tremendous style by winning in the wet at Suzuka, the wet that he supposedly does not get on with. 2nd place is going to be Daniel Stepkowski, but who will be 3rd? It looks as if Wok has it wrapped up now, because he's got a car length or 2 more than he did last time we looked.
Oh,
so
no, he's not gone deep.
He's okay, don't panic.
Deep into the first part of the chicane. I thought he was going to go straight on for a second.
And it's a double podium for RSR. Fantastic stuff for that team. And Ryan, you must be over the moon, but we'll speak to you in a bit about that. Stefan Ruhl P4, then Jeffrey Fournier P5. Jannis Wilburn is going to be P6. And then behind them, we saw everyone battling on that last lap of the race. I was trying to I couldn't really comment on that as the leaders were finishing, but anyway, looks as if Leon Bock is going to keep the championship mathematically alive, heading towards the penultimate round of the championship. Good job from him to finish P7 in a car that clearly was not working today, and it makes it a little more exciting for us. Admittedly, though, it is still going to take a couple of miracles to stop Yannick Bock from winning this crown. Through the 130R goes Yannick Bock now. Pascal Pollens will be P8. Chris Shepherd will be P9, just off the tail of these few. Don't lose it now, Leon. My goodness, that would be the worst way I've ever seen a championship wrapped up. Out of the final corner, Leon Bock keeps it alive, goes 7th. Here's a big old scrap further back. Contact between Jan Dragoon and Philip Pushkit. Oh, and they spin again. They both spin around and they collect Augustin Canapino. Come on, guys. Just a couple of corners left. You can do it. So it was Pollens 8th, then Shepherd 9th, Sandeep Singh 10th, then Pansar, Canapino, Pushkit, Dragoon at the end of that one, although I'm wondering whether there might be a few penalties or things like that to consider. I'm not convinced that Hygo Poom has just crossed the line now in 17th, so it was Jakub Ekalalu who got the final point in that one. Unfortunately, no points for MDR. There are the standings, as I said: Moose, Stepkowski, Bock, Fournier, Vauban, Bock, Pollens, Shepherd, and Singh. What a fantastic, unpredictable race in these wet conditions. Robin Pansar P11, then Canapino, Pushkit, Dragoon, Lalu, Magorgi, Poom, Lexo, Yunt. And then, of course, you have the drivers who won't be classified, the drivers who retired earlier on, such as Yannick Bock, I'm afraid to say, the championship leader, not being able to win the championship today. Dylan Platt, P21, he DNF2, so did Fabio Sixter as a result of a crash for once, rather than a internet issue, although with his luck, he probably would have disconnected anyway. And then Giannis Lianos finishes P23, or doesn't finish, as the case may be, I'm afraid to say. And that's the lot. So, an exciting day of racing. Suzuka has really delivered in all of the categories, from FS2 all the way up to SL1. And the very first interview that we can do today is with Ryan Elliott, the team boss of the Powered by RSR team. Ryan, a double podium for you, your first in GPVWC Super League.
That feels nice. Yeah, that's really good. And for me, it feels like a triple podium because we work so closely alongside the Red Archer boys. That's a 1, 2, 3 in my books. We feel we're a group. We feel like a team. We all get along really well, so I'm really pleased for Matthias. I knew he had it all along, and I think he knew he had it. It's just this year it's all sort of come together for him. Really good upgrade packages, good setup. The right team of people around him, and look what he can do. And my guys as well. Like when we started Super League last year, Tomasz and Daniel were, fighting for points. And look where we are this year. We've been semi-regular podium finishers and just constantly improving. And as a group, we've just taken a step forward, which is really, really good and makes us, we put in so much effort. It's nice to be rewarded.
Absolutely, and rewarded you were with not just a double podium, but a pole position as well, which what can look back on and say, look, I conquered the wet.
Exactly.
Sorry, it was Matthias Moose who was struggling with the wet, wasn't it? But anyway, Thomas Walk also did a great job today. Talking of Matthias, I'm going to bring him in now because Matthias Moose, you have just won your first GPVWC Super League Grand Prix. How does that feel?
Thank you, mate. I missed the words, honestly, man. It was so insane race. The first win, wow, there's so much work into it in the last 4 or 5 years. And then in the rain, I never liked it, the rain, but today it worked somehow.
Just being told that you were complaining about the weather heading up to this race, saying, oh, we stand no chance if it rains. Look at Singapore. But now you've won it. How did you do that? Did you do any wet practice for this? Did you make a specific wet setup? What's gone on? What's changed?
No, that was not really a wet setup, like maximum wings and I was more liking this conditions than this in Singapore, where you had to stay on the dry line. That is not mine. I later took this full wet tires and wet tires couldn't. I don't know what to say. I'm completely done now.
Okay, that's okay. Great job. And you've been on a real uptick recently with two podiums back to back in Belgium and Italy. And if you ignore Singapore, where you DNF, then I guess you could say it's kind of 3 podiums in a row. You've come of age this year, haven't you? This has been your best Super League series by far. What do you think has given you this sudden boost in performance?
I don't know. It's just, I'm really happy about mine. This time my performance is very well. The setups are great that we have in our group. So thanks to that. And as older you got, as better you are. I don't know. I'm close to 40 soon, so
It's
nice.
like fine wine, Matthias. That's how I would say.
Hey, right.
No, I would say thank you to Nikos as well. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I work with him like for 5 years now, and I say to him, come invite me to the interview. I think he never was here too, so but he would not. His English is maybe auch not the best like mine, but I try my best.
Well, congratulations, Matthias. That was absolutely fantastic. And you're now a GPWC Super League Grand Prix winner. Congratulations.
Thank you, mate.
So that was Matthias Muster, our race victor today. And I'd like to quickly apologise. I didn't mean to go wow when he said he was nearly 40. That could be taken as a little insulting. The reason I say that is because it's so refreshing to see that people are getting up to speed in sim racing at any age, really. I mean, we see so many youngsters coming through the ranks. I mean, GPVWC FS1, for example, something like the top 6 drivers in the championship are teenagers or something like that.
Crazy, isn't it?
And then you get, with the exception of Amari Watson, admittedly, but then you get to GPVWC Super League, and you still get people coming through who have done a little bit of sim racing, maybe casually, done a bit of racing games here and there, but have never really had the time to put into it. And then they do have the time to put into it, and they come up through the ranks just like the youngsters. It's so refreshing to see that it's never really too late for sim racing.
Well, you could say that about the entire Red Archer lineup. You know, I think Chris, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, Chris Shepherd's, I think 39 as well. So it's like a combined age of, an average age of 39 and a half at Red Archer.
Yeah, but Chris has been there and thereabouts for a long time. I've been racing Chris for years.
Chris has been around for years. I mean, so has Matthias, through Super Cup as well in the previous, but...
That's absolutely true. Fair enough. Anyway, thank you very much for that interview, Matthias, and also Ryan. We did briefly have someone else in the interview room, although it seems they've left before their turn. So rather than stalling for time, I'm afraid we are going to have to end the broadcast there. So thank you all very much for watching along. Thank you as well to Ryan Elliott for jumping in, not quite last minute, but you didn't know when you woke up this morning that you were going to be commentating today. So thank you for coming into the broadcast room and covering a very exciting race, and one that I'm sure is going to be very special for you looking back on as well. Thank you to Szymon Frelik for the cameras and the updates, and also to GPVWC for, as always, putting on such a show and such a race. We will see you in, well, actually, if you want to watch the support categories, we'll see you in under a week now, because on Tuesday, we've got the Formula Sprint 2 races from Mexico. I'm going to be competing in that, and probably finishing about 15th maybe, so don't expect too much from me. And then, of course, in a week's time, we have FS2. Next week, Tuesday, we have Super League Lights, or Super Lights as it is now. And then in 2 weeks' time, we will have yet another potential championship decider, our third potential championship decider in a row, the Mexico City Grand Prix. See you then.
bye.